This kid was seen as a loser by everything at school, but one day everything changed. He couldn't believe all this power he had now. His body was so strong he was scared of going bald. He broke the record in the running test and did the same thing in the push-up exam. For the weightlifting test, there just wasn't enough weight for him to use. All the students were watching, completely terrified. That was the kid they used to bully. He wasn't that strong. If I'd known, I never would have messed with him before. But the truth is, things used to be different. This kid was the only one who failed the passer exam. While the whole class celebrated passing, Kannagi Minato felt an inexplicable emptiness. It was the third time Head failed. He was the student who stayed behind to clean the classroom. This moment alone almost made him cry, realizing how useless he felt. One of his classmates told him all the students had to go to the school entrance. The reason was this guy, Hizaki Kaisei, and a rank hunter. He was a student at this school before becoming a famous hunter. He was there to film a documentary about how he was such a great student before becoming famous. But the truth not being shown to the cameras was this. Hizaki Kaisei was a horrible dude and used to beat up Minato every day for no reason. Remembering that guy made our protagonist tremble. But what Hizaki Kaisei told the cameras was that Minato was a great friend and always helped him when they studied together, even with money, because Minato's family was poor. These lies were just to make Hizaki Kaisei look even nicer for the cameras. And since Minato didn't have the guts, he simply agreed with Hizaki's words. As the reporters took photos, Minato felt those memories burn in his mind. He really didn't like this guy. After the filming wrapped up, our protagonist felt the emptiness of being weak, of not having the power to do anything. When he was younger, Minato loved reading books that told the stories of the legendary founders who saved the world when the Tower of Malevolence appeared and almost destroyed humanity with the monsters that came out of it. Incredible people emerged and saved the world. They were all amazing. One guy defeated 10,000 soldiers using a wooden stick. It could have easily been just a pencil, a mage so powerful she could cast spells without saying a single word. This was over a century ago. And now they are legends. When this mark appears on your body, you have the potential to be unawakened and become powerful and famous. But unfortunately, Minato failed the test 3 times. His dream was over. However, before leaving, Hizaki Kaisei went back to his classmate and said Head convinced the association to let Minato retake the test. He needed to go to the founder's sanctuary later to meet him. This left the protagonist confused. This guy was bad, but if he did this to improve his image even more, it didn't matter. As long as Minato got a second chance, he was going to take it. Later, at the founder's mausoleum, the cameras are rolling for the final scene. The shot focuses on Hizaki standing before the historic tomb, making some grand speech. After the interview wraps up, the reporters thank him, happy with the footage they got. Hizaki plays the polite celebrity, saying he can't wait to see the article, but as soon as they're gone, he heads deeper into the mausoleum, where his men are busy digging. "Did you find the entrance?" he asks. They eagerly point to a hidden passage, asking if this is what they've been looking for. Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind. When Minato arrived, expecting to retake the exam, the kids saw what they were doing. For him, this was a sacred place. The memory of the people he admired most was there. When he tried to stop the darn looters, Hizaki Kaisei hit him with all the force and a rank awakened could muster. The punch was brutal. Minato felt many things inside him shatter. The guys shouted that they had taken everything valuable. All those things were inside. Minato felt like he was about to die, and even then, he only thought about how wrong this was. They couldn't steal this. Hizaki Kaisei then grabbed Minato and said he knew everything about the kid, the weakest student, obsessed with the ancestors, who lived in the library reading books. His perfect plan was to throw the protagonist into the river behind the sanctuary and make him take the blame for opening the founder's tomb. The hit Minato took earlier was really meant to kill him. When he was thrown into the water, he had no strength left. As he sank, he remembered how he had trained every day, studied his hardest to achieve his dream, and it was all in vain. Then, at the bottom of the lake, lights lit up around him. Despite the cold water, a comfortable warmth came from them. Minato heard them say something about him being the vessel for this generation. The heroic spirits were sealed in this place. In Minato's hand was the crest of nothingness. It gave no power to its bearer. However, whoever possessed it could possess the spirit of any founder. Minato had to choose now which of the heroes he would make a contract with. Magic, endurance, swordsmanship, spear art, any of them. The protagonist then shouted that he chose all of them. He wanted all the powers. The heroes said it didn't work like that, but they were all sucked into the mark. All the souls went inside the seal. Hizaki and his thief friends were still near the lake when they heard the sound of an explosion in the water. By some miracle, one of the guys had an umbrella with him. The three couldn't believe that the guy floating in front of them was Minato, the loser who had just died. When the protagonist landed in front of them, his expression was completely different, but they still insulted him again, saying not even cockroaches were that resilient. A stick seemed interesting to the protagonist. The two guys laughed at him. You're gonna try to fight with a stick? You think you're John Wick? Minato wasn't fazed and kept testing his moves. Then Hizaki said in a serious tone, you guys need to make sure he doesn't leave the bottom of the lake again. One of the guys then drew his sword and promised to throw Minato back into the lake. When the guy made a real sword attack, several cuts in 1 second. The guy couldn't even see, only felt it when his body started to fall apart. Hizaki and the chubby guy couldn't believe the scene before them. This guy couldn't be the same loser from before. The chubby guy cast his most powerful magic. Minato was known for not having mana, so he'd be destroyed by this. The protagonist then pointed his finger, and without saying anything, a lightning bolt struck the spot. It wasn't hard to hit since the target was so big. Even so, Hizaki was shocked. That was definitely spellcasting without an incantation. That sword movement was as if the saint of swordsmanship himself was standing in front of him. This magic was like what the legendary mage used to do. What Hizaki couldn't understand was that all 106 founders were now inside Minato. The protagonist declared that a new name would be written in history, and Hizaki would also be remembered, but as the first evil to be eliminated by the great Kannagi Minato. As he approaches, Hizaki can only stare in horror. Finally accepting the impossible truth, the boy he threw away just absorbed the souls of the founders through the crest of nothingness. Inside Kannagi's mind, the founders are going wild after centuries of being sealed away. They're reveling in their newfound freedom and already arguing over who gets to control their new body first. Amidst the chaos, the legendary swordsman Hinoki Raikairu speaks to Kannagi, casually remarking that he's not surprised the boy remembers his name. He asks Kannagi what his plan is, brushing off Hizaki as a complete nobody and pointing his attention to a much bigger threat right behind him. Focused, Kannagi turns to face Hizaki, who's stammering in fear, trying to bluster about being an rank hunter. Kannagi doesn't even waste a word. He just throws a single punch that sends Hizaki flying. Kannagi then shifts his focus to the mysterious bag, which is practically radiating a dark aura. As he stares at it, a massive surge of power erupts from inside, catching him by surprise. Hinoki, however, just watches calmly, a slight smile on his face. Meanwhile, back in the city, a monstrous three-headed wolf is on a rampage. A man shouts for someone named Kisaragi to handle it. Wasting no time, Kisaragi leaps into action. With incredible grace, he gets above the beast and brings his sword down in a waterfall impact attack, defeating the rank monster in a single blow. The crowd goes wild, cheering for the Shrank hunter. Kisaragi humbly thanks them before asking where Hizaki is. One of the men says Hizaki is probably busy with an interview, remarking how nice it must be to be called the young hope. Kisaragi just shrugs it off, noting that Hizaki's fame is good for their guild's reputation. But just as they're about to leave, a terrifying pressure wave washes over the entire city. Panic erupts as civilians and even low-rank hunters collapse. Kisaragi sees his own teammates struggling. Realizing that even A and Brank hunters can't withstand it, he knows instantly. And Shrank monster has appeared. The immense pressure is flowing from the founder's mausoleum. Back in the forest, a terrified Hizaki struggles to his feet, staring in horror as a colossal monster crawls out of the bag. He stammers, Is that a demon? What is that thing? Kannagi explains that by stealing the relics, Hizaki broke the seal that was holding back one of the tower's original boss monsters. Inside Kannagi's mind, Hinoki analyzes the beast with an expert's eye. He recognizes it immediately as the embodiment of emptiness, a creature far beyond Shrank. According to him, its poisonous aura alone can kill thousands, and monsters like this were all too common back in his day. This is too much for Hizaki. He completely loses it and bolts, convinced that staying for one more second means certain death, but Kannagi knows a predator's instincts. He warns that running will only get him killed faster, but it's too late. The second Hizaki moves, the monster strikes with terrifying speed, shooting a massive tentacle right at him. He barely gets his sword up before the tentacle impales him, piercing straight through his chest. The same sword that once killed a dragon is completely useless now. The creature's tendrils spread across Hizaki's body, draining his life force as his screams echo through the forest. Kannagi, however, just watches, having known this was inevitable. As the former hero dies, Hinoki's spirit places a hand on Kannagi's shoulder. "Want to see my one-handed sword style?" He proposes, making a bid for complete control of the body. Before Kannagi can even answer, the other founders intervene, grabbing Hinoki by the hair and accusing him of trying to hog their powerful new vessel. But it's Kannagi himself who stops the bickering. He lays down his own terms. No single founder gets control. His body is to be shared among all of them. He declares that one day he will surpass every single one of them, and hell prove his worth through strength. If they want to use his body, they'll have to show him what real power looks like. Stunned by his sheer audacity, Hinoki just grins and readies his blade. Seizing the moment, Hinoki takes the first step, merging his consciousness with Kannagi's and urging the others to follow. As Hinoki's spirit lifts his sword, Kannagi's body mirrors the movement, targeting the. Guided by one founder's expertise, the blade severs a massive arm in a single, clean strike. The beast retaliates with a furious swing, but Kannagi's body, now infused with another founder's agility, dodges with inhuman speed. Power layers upon power as the spirits take turns, one granting him the strength to catch the creature's own tentacles and slam it violently into the ground. The monster is sent reeling as Kannagi snatches a bow, piercing its hide with arrows. He then unleashes a barrage of skills, whirlwinds, fire breath, ice attacks as the beast tries a sneak attack from below. Kannagi's eyes flash yellow. The great wizard inside him takes over, zapping the creature with lightning. Then, with a final powerful leap, Kannagi soars above the monster. Hinoki takes control, grabs Hizaki's broken sword, and executes his signature one-handed technique, the Gakairu Tachi Wave Cutting Blade. The sword slices the demon clean in half, ending its rampage. As the two halves fall, a victorious smile finally spreads across Kannagi's face. Watching the entire battle from a nearby tree is a single raven. Elsewhere in the city, a man standing atop a skyscraper answers a call, shocked to hear the monster was defeated before he even got there. He asks if any strong hunters were on the scene, but the voice on the other end says their footage from the raven shows it was an academy student who took it down. The man, Kihara Midori, the world's strongest awakened, says he wants to meet the student the next morning. Midori is sitting on a pile of monster corpses when he calls the academy's director. He tells him about the Shrank monster, clarifying that he wasn't the one who beat it. According to the raven's footage, it was Kannagi Minato. Midori finds this hard to believe, especially since Kannagi is known for failing the hunter exam 3 years in a row. He then asks the director for a special favor. Back at the academy, the students are all talking about what happened. The terrifying aura from the day before left most of them paralyzed, and now they're all guessing who could have possibly defeated such a monster. Meanwhile, Kannagi stumbles through the campus, leaning on a stick, his whole body trembling. He overhears their chatter, amazed that the incident has already become the talk of the school. Suddenly, a guy bumps right into him, knocking him down and scoffing at the idea that a weakling like him could be the Shrank Slayer. Kannagi knows the truth. He did beat the demon, but only by letting the founders use his body. Now he's paying the price. The recoil from their power is agonizing. As he struggles to get up, a voice mocks him in his mind. It's Hinoki, reminding him of his bold promise to surpass them with a challenging but encouraging tone. Hinoki pushes him to get it together. Kannagi remembers his vow and, ignoring the pain, forces himself back to his feet, quietly reaffirming his goal. Hinoki chuckles inside him, urging him to show some resolve. The spirit then scans the students nearby with a sigh of disappointment. The Awakeners of this era seem no stronger than regular humans, a far cry from the warriors of his time. He muses that if the tower reappeared now, the world would be doomed, but his thoughts are cut short when he senses an incredibly powerful aura nearby. Kannagi feels Hinoki's sudden tension, but the spirit just brushes it off. Just then, a professor shouts for Kannagi to come over. Assuming it's about his expulsion letter, he approaches cautiously. After all, he's failed 3 times and there are no more chances. But to his utter shock, the professor tells him to head to the field for a re-examination. The news leaves Kannagi stunned. The other students crowd the windows, whispering excitedly. No one has ever been given a hunter re-examination before on the field. Kannagi gets into a sprinter's stance. He's not fully recovered, but he's determined. The first test is a 100-meter sprint. The student who knocked him down earlier starts trash-talking again, calling him a failure. But as the test begins, everyone watches in stunned silence as Kannagi crosses the finish line in just 1.2 seconds, smashing the old record of 27. Next is the 3,000-meter run. He finishes in 1 minute and 17 seconds, obliterating the previous record. It's the same story for every other test. Push-ups, bench press, you name it. He doesn't just break the records, he more than doubles them. The students are left completely speechless. Kannagi himself wonders if the founders are secretly helping, but Hinoki assures him this is all him. Meanwhile, in the headmaster's office, Midori is looking over Kannagi's file. The headmaster admits that while Kannagi's new physical scores are unbelievable, the real issue has always been his magic. For 3 years, every single assessment has shown his mana levels to be 0, undetectable. It's the reason he was always considered a hopeless case. Midori's secretary just smirks, hinting that things might be about to get interesting. Out on the field, Kannagi stands before the final test. Magic measurement. The professor explains he needs to channel his mana into a large fan and make it spin for 30 seconds. The record is for 1,022 rotations. As Kannagi prepares, the memories of failing this exact test year after year come flooding back. No matter how much effort he has previously exerted, the fan has never so much as trembled beneath his attempts. His inability to sense mana has always held him back. But this time is different. For the first time, he can perceive it coursing through him, originating from his right foot, spiraling through his body, and returning once more. He recognizes that his breathing can regulate and accelerate the flow, allowing him to expel the energy through his right palm. As the professor signals the start of the test, Kannagi releases his mana. Instantly, the fan spins into motion at an astonishing pace. The counting machine struggles to register the rapid increase in speed, while the sheer force of the wind makes it difficult for the observers to even see the numbers. The velocity escalates beyond expectation, and before anyone can react, the machine blasts the fan, now completely detached, shoots across the field like a cutter. Students cry out in alarm as it hurtles toward the main building, crashing directly into the headmaster's office with a deafening impact. Inside, the headmaster barely evades the incoming debris, collapsing from the sheer shock of the event. Midori's secretary, stunned by the spectacle, can hardly process what has transpired. Meanwhile, Midori, unshaken by the chuckles to him, the resemblance between Kannagi's abilities and his own is undeniable. According to Midori, there has only ever been one individual before Kannagi who has produced an immeasurable score, and that is himself. The professor, still trying to make sense of what he has just witnessed, declares that Kannagi has passed the hunter examination. A wave of excitement ripples through the students as they erupt in cheers. Not only has Kannagi shattered every record, but he has surpassed all expectations. Staring at his own hands, Kannagi trembles with disbelief. He has spent years believing himself incapable of wielding magic, yet the power has been within him all along. From the sidelines, Hinoki observes the scene with quiet satisfaction, having anticipated such an outcome. Meanwhile, Kannagi knows that everything has changed. By surrendering his body to the founders, he has unlocked the dormant potential that has been hidden within him all this time. Hinoki can't help but laugh, remarking internally that the one before him is far from ordinary, with the crest of nothingness marking his fate. It's as if he has been waiting for this very moment for over a century. Before he can dwell further on the thought, an overwhelming presence descends upon them, sending a shockwave through the air. The sheer force of it leaves him momentarily speechless. His mind scrambles to make sense of the explosion, but Hinoki instantly recognizes the tremendous aura as it's the same one he had sensed earlier that morning. Standing before him, seemingly materializing from the very pressure itself, is the legendary Midori Kannagi. Seeing him is shocked, as he is the strongest hunter in existence. Midori landing starts addressing him directly. Midori acknowledges his achievements in the hunter examination, offering words of recognition, but Kannagi can barely utter a response. Midori then puts up a new challenge before him, which is an additional test. Midori wants Kannagi to land a single hit on him, the world's strongest hunter. Hearing that, Kannagi is left frozen in shock for a moment. Midori, 23 years old, a man who has earned the title of a full-fledged hunter at the mere age of 9, now stands before him. His feats are legendary, unmatched in all of history. He has turned thousands of demons to ashes in mere moments, his power so overwhelming that even other hunters dare not stand against him. 10 years ago, he single-handedly eradicated the pandemonium outbreak, and 5 years prior, he subdued the outbreak of Kyushu. He is a living singularity. As Midori explains his challenge, Kannagi is left in disbelief. However, Hinoki is excited, urging Kannagi to surrender his body to him immediately. Yet Midori explained the conditions in the simplest terms. Kannagi had 1 minute to strike him. Whether he succeeded or failed, no consequences would follow. Midori himself would only attack once every 10 seconds, ensuring that the challenge remained fair. There was no need for hesitation, no need for doubt. Any skill, any weapon was at Kannagi's disposal, while Midori would refrain from using any of his own. To prove his sincerity, Midori summoned a vast arsenal of weapons, giving Kannagi the choice of anything he desired. The sight of so many legendary weapons appearing in an instant only added to the surreal nature of the challenge. Confusion clouded Kannagi's thoughts. Realizing that he was going to fight the famous Midori in an unknown fight, still unsure, he hesitated before finally asking if he was truly free to use any weapon in response. Midori casually picked up a katana, his grip light but assured. With effortless ease, he sliced the blade clean in half as if it were nothing more than a brittle twig. He stated, without the slightest hint of arrogance, that his body surpassed the sharpness of any blade. Kannagi barely had time to process this display before Hinoki's impatience flared. Frustration seethed in his voice as he demanded to take over. Unable to tolerate Midori's overwhelming confidence, his anger boiled over as he declared that such words from Midori were unforgivable. Kannagi could feel Hinoki's energy surging, his presence amplifying as though he was ready to unleash his full strength. It dawned on him in that moment that Midori's power was comparable to that of the founders themselves. Against that level of strength, he had no real chance of victory. Yet even as realization settled in that there was no time to hesitate. Meanwhile, all the students gather around for the fight. Without warning, Midori initiated the countdown. A slight smile tugged at his lips as he signaled the start of the test. Kannagi grabs his sword and charges at Midori, determined to attack. Hinoki questions whether he intends to fight alone, insisting it isn't fair, but Kannagi ignores him and continues his assault despite knowing his are futile. He believes that to become a legend, he must rely on his own strength rather than borrowing power from the founders. He swings his sword at Midori, but Midori effortlessly dodges with minimal movement even as Kannagi relentlessly attacks. He remains on his phone, casually asking which social media he uses and remarking that the incident will surely be recorded and go viral. The students watch in disbelief, astounded that Midori can dodge every strike without taking the fight seriously, though Kannagi continues his relentless assault. One student notices something unusual about his movements. As they watch closely, Kannagi lifts his sword, feinting a vertical slash before swiftly switching to a horizontal one aimed at Midori's feet and throat. The execution is flawless, and Kannagi is amazed at how naturally his body moves. Realizing he isn't tiring, he wonders if this is the effect of lending himself to the founder's power. His thoughts are abruptly cut off when Midori places a finger on his head, preparing to flick him, and casually mentions that 10 seconds have already passed. Kannagi narrowly dodges, but the power Midori releases obliterates the field. Seeing the destruction, Kannagi realizes that if the attack had connected, his head would have been gone. Midori glances at his hand in confusion, sensing no malice from Kannagi, and wondering if he had miscalculated his own strength. Panic grips Kannagi as he understands that he will die at this rate. Desperately, he tries to recall the sensation of his stronger self as he focuses. A powerful aura surges from him, catching Midori off guard. Kannagi launches another attack, his speed increasing rapidly. The students are in awe, shouting that the camera can't keep up with their movements. Midori notices the shift in Kannagi's presence, and wonders if there is a specific condition to activate this power, or if Kannagi is deliberately keeping it a secret. Realizing another 10 seconds had passed, Midori decides to strike Kannagi lightly this time. He bends down, positioning his finger to flick again, but instead he hits Kannagi in the chest, sending him crashing hard into the wall. Kannagi coughs up blood. Yet he finds the experience incredible, marveling at the fact that he is fighting the world's strongest awakened. He understands that if his body were the same as it was yesterday, he would already be dead from that blow. This realization makes him smile, knowing it means he is growing stronger. However, he also acknowledges that his current skill is not enough to pass Midori's test. Determined, he chooses to push forward with brute force and charges at Midori once more. Suddenly, Midori appears beside him with unbelievable speed, causing Kannagi to stop in his tracks. Apologizing, Midori tells him he has seen enough. He then states that the 30 seconds are up before striking Kannagi at the nape, making him slowly lose consciousness as Kannagi collapses. Midori observes that he is indeed a genius, but not on the same level as his comrades. In the end, Kannagi is unable to fully unleash the power Midori had sensed. Calling his secretary, he informs her that they should head back, expressing his disappointment in the outcome. Just then, Kannagi grabs his sword, and Midori immediately senses an intense aura from behind him. Midori glances back and sees Kannagi's body radiating with power. Hinoki, now speaking through Kannagi, remarks that the stubborn brat is already asleep, allowing him to finally take over. Stepping forward, Hinoki suggests they extend their fight a little longer. Meanwhile, Kannagi's spirit, separated from his body, panics at the sight of Hinoki controlling it, yet Midori merely smiles, recognizing the presence he had sensed earlier. He wonders if this is an entirely different person, or merely a skill at play. Regardless, he understands one thing: Kannagi is now a monster. Kannagi, under Hinoki's control, suddenly launches an attack, shouting at Midori not to space out. Midori notices immediately that his movements have changed. His speed and strength have reached another level. Suddenly, a sword nears Midori's face, and he ducks just in time to avoid it. Kannagi swings again, forcing Midori to leap away to create distance. Still in shock, Midori watches as Kannagi swiftly positions his sword for another strike. He swings once more, but Midori bends down just in time, causing the attack to land on the building behind him instead. The students inside scramble in panic, realizing the danger. Midori notices that Kannagi's slashes have become unpredictable, yet he can still anticipate the flow of his movements. It reminds him of ancient swordsmanship, like a relentless torrent of water. Raising his palm, Midori laughs and remarks that such skill is necessary to defeat an Srank like him. He then lifts his hand again, intending to put Kannagi to sleep once more, noting that only 40 seconds have passed. However, Kannagi suddenly moves forward at an incredible speed, swinging his sword and shouting that Midori won't be able to hit him. Midori swiftly jumps back to evade the attack, laughing as he acknowledges Kannagi's impressive skill. The students can hardly believe what they are witnessing as Midori is on the defensive. Kannagi shouts that Midori is boring and insists that he shouldn't hold back. He warns Midori that if he looks down on him, he will beat him up. Without hesitation, Kannagi leaps forward to attack, but Midori only laughs and responds with confirmation. With a swift kick, Midori sends a stone flying toward the weapons behind him. Instantly, the weapons float into the air. He jumps, catching Kannagi off guard, and grabs one of the weapons hovering above them excitedly. Kannagi exclaims that Midori is finally going all out. They then engage in an intense midair battle, clashing foot against foot, stunning the students who watch in awe. They seize every weapon within reach, shattering them into pieces with their sheer strength. Meanwhile, inside Kannagi's body, the founders observe Hinoki unleashing his full power. They are impressed that Midori is able to keep up. Old Man Spirit suggests joining the fight, but another founder scolds him, calling him tactless. The great wizard, watching in silence, suddenly realizes that Kannagi has been studying Hinoki's movements, trying to learn from them. He notices Hinoki shifting his center of gravity as he pounces from below, but the sword in his hands shatters once again. Frustrated by the poor quality of the weapon, Hinoki feels a surge of anger. Midori, on the other hand, finds the battle exhilarating and fun. However, he soon realizes that there are no swords left and wonders if Kannagi will resort to firearms. With a taunting smirk, Midori shouts that only 10 seconds remain and teasingly asks what Hinoki plans to do now. Hinoki glances toward the building behind him before leaping toward it. He heads straight for the man who had pushed Kannagi earlier and snatches his sword. Just then, Midori jumps closer, launching his fist at Hinoki. The impact causes a loud explosion against the... Fortunately, Hinoki dodges in time and reappears in front of Midori. They resume their mid-air clash. Exchanging blows, Midori shouts that the fight is fun and suggests they continue a bit longer. Meanwhile, the students notice that the building is on the verge of collapsing. As the battle reaches the rooftop, Midori's secretary watches nonchalantly. Midori then places his hand on a massive fan and grabs it, causing cracks to form on its surface. He retrieves the fan from the building and aims it at Hinoki with a powerful throw. He sends it hurtling toward him. However, he is taken by surprise when Hinoki, wielding his one-handed sword, slashes through the fan like dice with his dice-style sword art. The fan shatters into tiny fragments, and Midori reacts with excitement, praising Hinoki's skill. However, Hinoki wastes no time and launches his sword at Midori. To his shock, the sword shatters upon impact. Midori raises his hand, aims at him, and calmly acknowledges that 60 seconds have passed before striking Hinoki with his palm, sending him crashing down. Hinoki curses under his breath, but before he can react, Kannagi suddenly leaps onto his back and pushes him back toward the other founders. As Midori's attack nears, Kannagi manages to deflect it aside with a gentle motion. Successfully dodging the strike, the unexpected maneuver leaves both Hinoki and Midori stunned. However, the impact breaks one of Kannagi's hands. Despite that, he remains focused on his goal and delivers a punch to Midori's face with his remaining good hand from the inside. The battle between the singularities feels endless. A fierce clash over a seemingly small outcome, much like a chess match where both players are equally skilled. Despite its intensity, Hinoki knows it has lasted only a brief moment. Watching with quiet pride, he realizes that Kannagi has carved open a new path to victory. Kannagi, however, is left in shock when he sees Midori halt his fist just in time. Frustration fills him as he realizes he has failed to land a clean hit, but then, to his surprise, Midori smiles and deliberately pulls Kannagi's fist toward his own face, acknowledging the effort. Without hesitation, he confirms that Kannagi has passed before either can react further. Both collapse onto the ground. The students observing the battle murmur in confusion, struggling to comprehend what has just happened. Midori, still holding Kannagi's unconscious body, calls for his secretary Rin and informs her that they should leave. Rin arrives beside him and inquires about the outcome. Midori confirms that Kannagi has passed and admits finding him interesting. However, he acknowledges that he has accidentally broken Kannagi's arm and requests Rin to heal him. She agrees without hesitation. The students, overhearing the conversation, struggle to believe that Kannagi has succeeded. The realization soon sets in and cheers erupt throughout the area that Kannagi managed to land a punch on Midori. The noise stirs Kannagi awake, and as Rin works on healing him, she cautions him not to move. He complies, thanking her, and she congratulates him on passing the test. Kannagi, still in disbelief, sits up abruptly, questioning whether he has truly managed to land a hit on Midori. Before he can process the thought further, Midori suddenly appears beside him. Amused by his reaction without dwelling on the moment, Midori affirms that a pass is a pass. He acknowledges having taken the battle seriously midway through his consecutive attack. Midori goes on to praise Kannagi's skill, commending his ability to dodge his strongest attack and his impressive movements. He encourages Kannagi to take pride in the achievement. Kannagi, regaining his composure, accepts the praise. Without hesitation, he turns his attention to the next step, eager to know what comes after passing. His question leaves Rin momentarily puzzled as she turns toward Midori, equally uncertain, searches for an answer. Later that night, Kannagi was home, helping his mom clean up while she cooked in the kitchen. She casually asked how many guests were coming. Kannagi wasn't sure, so he just guessed one. His mom then thought back on the day, saying it had been a really big deal. Not only had Kannagi passed the hunter's exam, but had also gotten Midori's attention. She told him she was confident in his abilities, believing Head always been able to achieve anything just by trying hard. Kannagi listened, quietly appreciating what she said. But then his mom's face changed. She worried about such a famous person visiting their home, joking that people might mistake it for a doghouse. Kannagi, exasperated, quickly brushed off the idea. He insisted Midori wasn't the type to judge things like that. Once he finished his chores and helped his mom, he finally collapsed onto his bed. But his mind was still stuck on the day's events. His eyes went to the card Midori had given him, and he felt a wave of uncertainty. He wondered why Midori hadn't thought the situation through more carefully. His mind went back to the battlefield from earlier that day, remembering when Rin had taken Midori down and twisted his leg. He clearly remembered Midori's pained scream when Rin had confronted him right then. Midori had reminded Kannagi of something Head said earlier, suggesting Kannagi had agreed to be one of his comrades if they won. Kannagi, confused, denied ever saying anything like that. Rin, getting more agitated, had tightened her grip on Midori's leg. Midori told Kannagi there were too many people watching, and suggested he come to his home that night to talk about everything properly. He promised Head explain the choices they had, and reveal their real enemies. Kannagi wondered who these enemies could be. He knew the founders had already destroyed the tower, and that current hunters were supposed to eliminate monsters that escaped the dimensional crack. He wondered if there was another reason, but soon drifted off to sleep. Suddenly, Hinoki's shouting jolted him awake. He saw Hinoki and the founders gathered in his room, confused. He asked why they were there and what was wrong, but Hinoki just said they'd been discussing something and had just finished. Still puzzled, Kannagi instinctively covered himself, and worriedly asked if they'd decided who would take his body. Before Hinoki could answer, the doorbell rang. Apologizing, Kannagi figured it was Midori, and suggested they talk later. He walked to the door. It was dark and he felt uneasy. Then, to his shock, he saw his mom collapsed on the floor. Panic hit him. He called out to her, rushing over, but stopped short when he noticed someone sitting in the kitchen. The stranger was just eating the food his mom had made, even complimenting it, all while ignoring the huge mess around him. With a mocking tone, the man told Kannagi he should discipline his mom. He even insisted that if Kannagi wanted to impress customers, they'd need to get better quality food. Kannagi immediately demanded to know who he was and what had done to his mom. The man didn't even flinch. He just yelled at Kannagi to watch his tone, then introduced himself as Hitani Goru, and Shrank Hunter and a comrade of Midori's. Hitani then ordered Kannagi to grab his luggage, saying they were moving to their base. Rage boiled in Kannagi. Without a second thought, he launched a punch at Hitani, but Hitani easily dodged and suddenly appeared behind him. Asking if Kannagi was challenging him, Kannagi stayed silent. Remembering his mom's words, Shed promised to raise him alone, with pride, after his dad passed away. He remembered the worn-out shoes she still insisted on wearing, always telling him to buy new sneakers. Instead, he also remembered her congratulating him earlier and promising to make his favorite tonkatsu for dinner. With new determination, Kannagi glared at Hitani and demanded to know what had done to his mom. Watching all this, Hinoki realized Hitani was in Shrank Hunter from the previous era. Hinoki was annoyed by this guy, who he thought was just a rip-off of Midori, and decided it was time to act. The founders, who'd seen Kannagi fight Midori, now understood how they should treat him from now on. Hitani, amused, just taunted Kannagi, saying his angry expression was pretty cute. He raised his hand to slap Kannagi, but Kannagi stayed perfectly still, completely unfazed. As the strike came closer, Kannagi effortlessly caught Hitani's hand and, with surprising ease, just swung him around. The grandpa founder was stunned. He recognized that technique from their old battles against monsters. Suddenly, Hitani was hurled right out the window, crashing through the backyard wall. But Hitani landed on his feet before he even hit the ground. Hitani regained his stance and walked back, trying to figure out what just happened. He wondered if what had just seen was Aikido. He remembered Kannagi's fight with Midori that afternoon. Head noticed Kannagi's huge aura and swordsmanship, but also a strange, peculiar power. Hitani acknowledges his resilience, saying he's tougher than Hizaki. Kannagi's patience is running out, so he demands an answer. He pushes Hitani to tell him what he did to his mother, who's still inside, twisting in pain as poison spreads through her body. Hitani just laughs. He mockingly points out that Kannagi doesn't seem to know what's going on. Then, with a grin, he finally tells him the truth. His mother was in the way, so he put her to sleep with poison. Hitani smirks, adding that if she might only suffer minor side effects. He stays calm, saying he doesn't understand, which makes Hitani look at him confused. Then he asks why they'd hurt the family of someone who might become their comrade. Hitani only laughs at the word comrade. He suddenly appears behind him. Ready to strike, he barely dodges Hitani's attack, but the relentless assault keeps coming. As he attacks, Hitani says he'll never be their comrade, he's just a puppet following their commands. Hitani taunts him, saying that once his loved ones become hostages, he'll have no choice but to give in. He calls him naive before he can even react. Hitani steps on his foot and slashes him, mockingly asking if he was right. He quickly backs away, feeling a burning sensation on his cheek. As he reaches up, he realizes the poison is already spreading. Hitani grins, lifting his fingers, which are now coated with sharp, poison-laced needles. He teases that it's already in his system. He then reveals that it lets him produce dozens of poisons from his body, which he calls phantom bugs poison, deadly vision. Hitani then complains about how inconvenient this mission is. He says that if he wanted to, he could release deadly toxic gas over a 5-kilometer radius, but doing that in the middle of the city isn't an option. He then states that the poison will kill him in a minute, unless he agrees to join their organization. If he does, Hitani will give him the antidote. Otherwise, he'll die. He thinks about how deadly Hitani's toxin is, knowing it would be an inescapable death sentence for any normal person. Looking down at his hand, he calls out to Valentine, the god of medicine, asking if she's inside him. The founders look at Valentine, who seems both confused and surprised. He apologizes for calling her so suddenly, and asks if she can teach him how to neutralize the poison later. She stammers out an agreement. Irritated, Hitani throws another wave of poison at him, yelling and asking what kind of nonsense he's mumbling. He quickly dodges it, then explains that the Aikido move Head used earlier came from Kuduhuma, the god of hands. The old man inside him is taken aback, realizing he's managed to copy his move just from seeing it once. Next, he calls on Hinoki, the 10,000 army slasher, Shimer Kulkis, the blue spear of destruction, and Margit, the heavenly bow. He says he's studied and memorized all of them from the records. He tells Hitani that the founders Hitani used to look up to are now inside him. This leaves Hitani completely bewildered, but instead of being afraid, Hitani gets furious. He shouts that hell show him what real pain is. Hitani then charges at him, his needles ready. He leaps away just in time, avoiding the attack. Hitani's strike hits a nearby tree, and it withers and dies instantly. Hitani doesn't hesitate. He launches another attack, shouting that if he kneels and begs, he might get an antidote to make the pain a little less. He warns him once pain consumes him, he'll never go back to normal. His mind will be lost to madness, but he stays silent, just waiting as Hitani's hand gets closer. Just as Hitani reaches him, he quickly slides to the side. He puts his palm against Hitani's chest and activates Saint Wantok's fist. Hitani coughs up blood from the hit, which shocks Wantok inside him. The force sends Hitani crashing into a streetlight. Without a moment's hesitation, he follows up with a kick, using Eilerson's feet of light. This sends Hitani flying a great distance. Eilerson, who's inside him, is stunned by the power. But Hitani still manages to stand up and recovers quickly. In an instant, he's in front of Hitani again, attacking with both hands. He manages to slip through Hitani's attack, breaking some of his needles. Then he uses the sharp beak corral attack, hitting Hitani in the stomach. Kannagi then slashes Hitani with Rowan's skill, the dragon's claw. This leaves Rowan, who's inside him, stunned and surprised. Hitani grabs him, then activates Lilac's flipper, which ends up throwing Hitani around in midair. As he floats, he wonders what's happening. He knows poison should cloud judgment and should have already messed with the nervous system, but Kannagi is still moving, strong and unharmed Kannagi then used the Magus of Truth, Meltius Silentius. Unleashing it on Hitani, there was a loud energy blast that completely shocked everyone. Hinoki turned to the founders, asking if they'd seen that. He told them that right after beating Hitani, Kannagi began copying all their moves, both physical and magical. Hinoki added that he didn't care if Kannagi's power came from the crest of nothingness, he just found him really interesting. The founders agreed. Hinoki then suggested they train Kannagi, convinced that if they did, he'd become the strongest awakener. Meanwhile, somewhere else, hooded figures were running and jumping across rooftops. One of them yelled for everyone to hurry. He revealed that Nemur's guilds were after Kannagi, so they needed to move fast and grab him before Nemur's people did. Suddenly, Midori appeared right behind him. "Are there really that many?" Midori asked. The man looked shocked, but Midori calmly told him, "If there are 15, you must be the last one." Midori then pointed a finger near the man's forehead, flipped his head, and slammed him hard onto the building's roof. He contacted Rin using his Raven's call, and she answered right away, telling him she'd arrived. She assured him there weren't any Awakeners nearby, but her next words really surprised him. "Someone else has already been here," Rin said. Midori stayed quiet, waiting for her to go on. Rin then explained that the intruder was Hitani, and Strank Hunter, famous for his poison skills, had come to find Kannagi, but had been completely beaten. Midori's eyes went to the rooftop, where Hitani was lying sprawled out, his mouth slightly open. It made Midori wonder what exactly had happened. A little while later, they got to Kannagi's house. Midori clapped his hands together, a bright grin spreading as he praised Kannagi. He genuinely admired him, saying he'd never expected Kannagi to take down N. Without hesitation, he asked, "Were you exposed to the poison?" Kannagi scratched his cheek, giving a small, sheepish reply, "Both Mom and I are fine." Hinoki, unimpressed, crossed his arms. He reminded Kannagi, "You wouldn't have made it through the night without Valentine's help." As soon as her name was mentioned, Valentine groaned, clearly exhausted, but Hinoki quickly acknowledged her swift work, noting that finishing everything in just 5 seconds was no easy feat. Valentine just shrugged, muttering that it wasn't difficult at all since the poison's creator was right there. It just took a few jabs to get the blood samples they needed and find the antidote. Kannagi was still trying to process everything, but he finally asked the question that had been bothering him. Had Hitani been lying when he said he was Midori's comrade? Midori nodded right away, confirming it was a lie. He added that lots of people use his name for their own gain. With that out of the way, he looked back at Rin. He asked if she was done, and just as he did, she appeared at his side and nodded. She told him all the damage was fixed. Kannagi's eyes went wide with disbelief. He glanced at his house, and sure enough, his window and backyard wall looked completely perfect again. Then, with a bright smile, Midori suggested they go inside to talk about Kannagi's future. Kannagi just stood there, frozen. He felt a mix of excitement and unease washing over him. The next day, a car was waiting for Kannagi, and his mother saw him off at the gate. She reminded him to check if he'd forgotten anything, but Kannagi told her he was fine, and that she worried too much. She couldn't believe the child she'd raised was now heading to Midori's. Midori had already promised Kannagi's mother he'd take care of him and turn him into a great hunter. Hearing that made Kannagi really excited, but his mother was still a bit worried, hiding her concern. She gave Kannagi his lunch, telling him to eat since he'd skipped breakfast even though he didn't really need it. Kannagi took it without arguing. Then, his mother directly asked Midori if her son would be in danger. Midori confirmed it right away. His mother then revealed that Kannagi had always struggled until now, so it was a huge deal for her to trust Midori with her son still. As a mother, she couldn't help but feel uneasy. Midori, sounding confident, promised her he'd train Kannagi until he had no weaknesses left. Hearing this, she finally agreed to leave Kannagi with him. Once there in the car, Rin, who's driving, looks at Midori. She asks if it was really alright to promise Kannagi's mom something like that, especially since they don't even know what's going to happen. Midori feels a moment of worry. He glances in the rearview mirror and sees Kannagi's mom still giving him last-minute advice. She's telling him how to wash his clothes right and reminding him not to sleep naked, or he'll catch a cold. Her concern makes a determined look flash in Midori's eyes. He silently vows he'll do his best. Meanwhile, Kannagi holds back his emotions and says his final goodbye just as he's about to get into the car. His mom reminds him to come home for New Year's as they finally drive off. Midori asks Kannagi if he's okay. Kannagi admits he had to really control his emotions. Midori leans back in his seat, telling him to just do whatever he feels like, whether that's eating or resting. Looking around, Kannagi notices the lunchbox his mom packed sitting neatly beside him. He opens it, his mom's words still fresh in his mind. When he lifts the lid, his eyes land on a small good luck message carefully placed on the pork cutlet. That simple gesture hits him hard, stirring up emotions he expected. He pauses for a moment, thinking about all the care and sacrifices she's made for him. A quiet sense of gratitude settles in his chest as he starts to eat. Even though the meal comes with the sting of unshed tears, Rin and Midori, sitting nearby, exchange glances but stay silent, letting him process the moment in his own way as they continue their journey. When they finally get to their destination, Kannagi's shocked he takes in the impressive anti-prophecy headquarters building. Midori welcomes him, explaining that only a select few Awakeners are ever allowed inside. The weight of that knowledge settles over him. For a brief moment, he's overwhelmed, realizing what he's about to become a part of. Inside one of the rooms, a man stands by the window, watching them arrive with quiet intensity without turning. He speaks to someone else in the room, confirming that the new members have arrived. A girl, her expression unreadable, questions if this is really about the newcomer. A young man responds, saying it's pretty rare for them to get a new comrade. But another man, standing to the side with his arms crossed, is skeptical. He insists they should first figure out if the newcomer is truly worthy of joining the anti-prophecy. Meanwhile, outside the headquarters, he's momentarily frozen, struggling to really process his surroundings. Questions swirl in his mind. What exactly is the anti-prophecy unit? And could it have any connection to Ichihara Guild? Sensing his unease, Rin acknowledges things aren't clear, and apologizes for not explaining sooner. She explains she hasn't been able to tell his mom everything because it's classified. It's a top national secret. Those words hit him harder than he expected as they headed towards the building. Midori suggested they take his luggage to the dorm first. Rin offered to help, but he turned her down, saying he could handle it himself. Just as he was about to move, a sudden voice cut through the air, telling them to wait. The unexpected interruption startled him. He looked up and saw the young man from earlier standing above them without missing a beat. The man declared he'd be the one to explain everything. Then, in the same breath, he lunged forward with a powerful kick, aiming straight for him. He instinctively raised his arms to block, but the sheer force shattered the ground under his feet. The impact sent a tremor right through him, but he stayed standing, bracing himself against the shock. The man seemed impressed. He acknowledged his resilience and even offered a rare word of praise. Intrigued, he paused for a moment before asking who he was. Without missing a beat, the man stepped back, landing effortlessly on the ground. He then proudly introduced himself as Hanada Hikataru, a member of the anti-prophecy unit, and his comrade. The revelation caught him by surprise, but there wasn't much time to hesitate. Hanada had been assigned to explain everything, and ready or not, the truth was about to unfold. Meanwhile, Midori seemed completely unfazed. He just asked Rin for some tea. Rin nodded and poured him a cup while the other two kept sparring. Midori watched them calmly, his gaze steady. He asked Hanada why they were fighting if they were comrades. Hanada, still unfazed, explained it served two purposes: introducing Kannagi to the anti-prophecy unit and testing his skills. The explanation stuck in Kannagi's mind, leaving him unsure what kind of test this actually was. Without warning, Hanada moved with swift precision, launching another kick at him. Kannagi reacted instantly, blocking the strike with both arms, his stance unshaken even in the middle of the fight. Hanada started explaining where the anti-prophecy unit came from. Kannagi listened, but he was skeptical. He doubted Hanada would really give a full explanation while they were still fighting. As the exchange continued, Hanada paused for a moment to ask for Kannagi's name before going on without hesitation. He introduced himself as Kannagi Minato. Midori, still leisurely sipping his tea, thought about how Kannagi had been tested again and again, first by the academy, then by him, and even by Ensrank. Now he's facing another challenge. He turned to Rin, wondering aloud if Kannagi would always face these constant tests. Rin, looking calm, said it couldn't be helped after all. Kannagi's been personally scouted. Meanwhile, Hinata just kept delivering relentless kicks, but Kannagi kept blocking with his hands. His endurance didn't waver. At one point, Hinata suddenly asked, "What's the role of a hunter?" Kannagi didn't hesitate, saying, "A hunter's job is to eliminate monsters that emerge from dimensional cracks." Hinata gave him an approving thumbs up, confirming his answer was correct. He then compared a hunter's role to pest control, a simple but powerful analogy. Suddenly, Hinata dropped to the ground, changing the subject with a new question. He asked Kannagi about other dangers that exist outside of dimensional cracks. The question caught Kannagi off guard. He hesitated, then asked Hinata to clarify what he meant by other dangers. Hinata's expression darkened slightly. As he explained, the world faces threats far worse than just dimensional cracks. He spoke of terrifying events, the Pandemonium 10,000 Demons Castle from 10 years ago, and the great outbreak of Kyushu from 5 years ago. Kannagi immediately recognized these as huge dimensional breaks, disasters that left lasting scars. But before he could even respond, Hinata suddenly lunged at him instinctively. Kannagi raised his arms, managing to block the attack. Still, the strike's sheer force sent him skidding backward. Hinata acknowledged his toughness, praising him for correctly remembering the public details of those past catastrophes. He then added that Kannagi would understand much more about them once he started training at the academy. Just as Kannagi managed to steady himself, his breath still measured, he barely had time to react. Hinata suddenly appeared above him with staggering speed. Kannagi didn't even have time to think. Hinata's leg was already coming down in a crushing axe kick. Kannagi just barely managed to throw himself out of the way, dodging it as Hinata's foot slammed into the ground. A nearby tree took the hit instead, splitting cleanly in half. The attack was so powerful it left Kannagi stunned for a moment. Hinata then straightened up, and his tone changed as he kept explaining. He explained that events like the Tower of Malevolence from 300 years ago weren't just disasters, they were full-scale invasions, direct attacks from another dimension. Kannagi struggled to believe what he was hearing, trying to grasp the weight of those words. This wasn't just history, it was happening right now. Hinata stepped closer, his expression serious. He admitted he didn't understand why today's Awakeners seemed weaker than those from the Tower era. There just weren't as many people who could match the original founder's strength, and that really bothered him. Caught between curiosity and worry, Kannagi finally asked the question he'd been holding back: "What should we do?" Hinata's answer was firm. That's exactly why the anti-prophecy unit exists. He explained that people who can foresee these threats and predict real catastrophes don't share that knowledge with the public. They only tell the elites, the ones who can actually handle such dangers, and those elites, Hinata stated, are the members of the anti-prophecy unit. Midori and Rin couldn't help but smile proudly when they heard this. Kannagi then realized their whole purpose was to stop these prophecies from happening. Hinata then told him that, as of today, he was officially part of their group. Hinata welcomed him into the group, saying he was the first person who'd managed to block his kicks one after another. Hinata held out his hand as a sign of acceptance, and Kannagi shook it. Midori and Rin applauded, and then Hinata called for the other Awakeners, who appeared silently above the house. Hinata asked them what they'd do, but they just stared at him, then vanished, which really surprised Kannagi. Midori said they disappeared like villains, but Hinata just shook his head. He figured they wanted to see how things played out for themselves. Hinata then told Midori to leave it to him, and Midori did, heading off. After that, Hinata helped Kannagi with his things, and offered to show him to his dorm room, which Kannagi thanked him for. That night, as he got settled, Kannagi couldn't stop thinking about what this organization meant. It was all about handling prophecies in their world. He wondered if the founders had faced a similar crisis back in the Tower's era, and if he was now fighting something that had been predicted. His thoughts got him anxious, but then a voice cut through his worry, saying head simply trained. Surprised, he turned to see Hinoki and the other founders standing right there. He quickly apologized for not talking to them sooner, but Hinoki told him not to worry. They'd already made a decision as the founders. They'd decided to train him to be the strongest Awakener, just like Midori. With their help, he could become the strongest Awakener ever. One of their own disciples. Kannagi was really surprised, asking if they really wanted him as their disciple. Hinoki nodded, saying yes, but then teased that it'd lead to a kind of battle royale between them. Kannagi, worried, begged them not to fight over him. Hinoki explained that's how things had started. But after watching him more closely, the founders had changed their minds. Instead of just using his body for their own benefit, they found training him much more interesting. Hinoki then told him that when Kannagi beat the poison user, he actually copied all their moves. He couldn't do them as well, of course, but he picked up the basics really fast. Hinoki asked if Kannagi understood how big of a deal this was, pointing out it was probably because of his crest of nothingness. But what really made him special was how fast he learned. Hinoki explained that this ability was actually stronger than any of the founder's own talents. As Hinoki spoke, Kannagi felt tears welling up in his eyes. He remembered his old trainers' faces, the ones who told him he seemed to have no talent. Until now, no one had ever expected anything from him. It all felt like a dream, especially since He'd been treated like trash and constantly bullied for failing the hunter's qualification test 3 times. He remembered his classmates' laughter. Their mocking voices telling him to just give up. His name was often forgotten, lost in the crowd because no one cared enough to remember it. No one had faith in his future, and he was used to being overlooked. But now, 2 of the most renowned figures, Midori and Hinoki, were actually acknowledging him. He couldn't believe they were. It made him question if he even deserved this sudden happiness. He'd admired them from afar for ages, never once thinking they'd actually trust him. Hinoki noticed his reaction, came closer with a reassuring smile, and put a hand on his shoulder. He told him not to let his emotions take over. Then it was revealed. Their actual souls were inside him, especially when he slept. This presence meant he could access a space not limited by time or dimension. Knowing this, they laid out his rigorous training schedule. Every afternoon, He'd train with the anti-prophecy unit, and at night, in his dreams, He'd continue his lessons. Peaceful sleep was a thing of the past, but He'd already braced himself for the challenge. He accepted their guidance right away, determined to follow whatever they said. Night passed, and morning came. In the bathroom, Hinata was washing his face when he saw him walk in. They exchanged greetings, but he still looked really tired. He was clearly exhausted, and he admitted he hadn't adjusted to the grueling schedule yet. Hinata understood perfectly, remembering how He'd struggled himself when he first started at the dorm. But then, something unexpected caught Hinata's eye, a powerful aura coming from him. His curiosity was piqued, so Hinata impulsively threw a swift kick. Yet, with an almost effortless move, he just lowered his head, spat out the water in his mouth, and walked away. He didn't even look back. He dismissed Hinata's silly stunt, saying he had no patience for that kind of thing so early in the morning and was going to the cafeteria first. Hinata was left in disbelief. He realized his attack was faster than yesterday, but it had been dodged so easily. Moments later, in the cafeteria, Hinata spotted a good place to sit and walked over to a woman who was eating some fruit. He asked if she minded if they joined her, and she gave a short, curt approval. Hinata took the chance, sat across from her, and motioned for him to sit next to him. Then he recognized her. This was one of Hinata's comrades from yesterday, but she still seemed distant. She spoke to him formally, making it clear she didn't really want him there. Even so, he greeted her and introduced himself. Her indifference was immediate. She wasn't interested in learning his name, and she certainly didn't plan on remembering it. She even raised her fork, pointed it at him, and declared she'd only acknowledge his name when she deemed him worthy. Until then, training was the priority. He'd have to go with her on a mission to get rid of a prophecy. This prophecy went all the way back to 1945, when people found the first prophecy book buried deep in the Antarctic ice, 3,000 meters down. They called it the Book of Doom. Its writing was crude, almost like a child's scribbles, but it predicted a catastrophic future. It said that 80 years later, the world would face a devastating attack and a bunch of apocalyptic disasters. The words were so heavy that everyone took it seriously. Later, as they were driving, she asked him why he thought the world believed the book's grim predictions. He thought about it for a moment, then looked at her, still not sure what her name was. But before he could even ask, she told him there wasn't any need for introductions and just wanted his answer. He figured the prophecies had to be accurate, but she reacted right away. She scoffed at his answer, practically questioning his intelligence. She told him that if even one thing in the Book of Doom came true, the world would end. That revelation stunned him. As they kept talking, he turned to Hinata, wondering how many prophecies were actually recorded. Hinata guessed around 200, and that just left him speechless. He couldn't help but wonder if the world was already beyond saving. But Midori reassured him that they'd already prevented almost 180 of those prophecies, which totally amazed him. Still trying to wrap his head around it all, he went back to asking why the world believed in the book so much. The woman explained that an explorer named Bernard Russell found the Book of Doom. The second Bernard opened it, the very first page said, "Hello Bernard," along with a precise timestamp, March 17, 1945, 11:35 a.m. On a sunny day, the exact moment he discovered it. That eerie accuracy left no room for doubt. Hours later, they got to their destination. Tokyo's Sumida Ward, an intermediate-level dimensional crack, had opened up there. As they got closer, guards blocked their path, firmly saying the area was off-limits. But they just ignored the warnings, zipped past them with incredible speed, and left the guards momentarily stunned. He hesitated, wondering if it was really okay to go on. But Haneda quickly reassured him it was. The woman then started explaining the big crisis they were dealing with. She explained that big problems like the Third World War, the dark side of the moon, an invasive pandemic, and the floating trees were all considered emergencies. Out of those, the pandemonium outbreak, which Midori managed to stop, was an especially bad one. Even though the Book of Doom's pretty well known, it's just one of many magic books scattered all over the world. The anti-prophecy unit's job is to gather information, analyze predictions, and act before things happen. She then went through the different threat levels they dealt with. A rank 3, for instance, meant one or more regions getting destroyed. A rank 2 was a national emergency, while a rank 1 affected the planet's environment as a whole. Then there was the special rank, reserved for when the world itself was going to be destroyed. He listened carefully, and as he realized how serious everything was, he grew alarmed. He urgently asked if these missions were now completely up to them. The woman didn't flinch. She confirmed that, yes, those duties just came with being part of the anti-prophecy unit. Not long after, Kisaragi and his team spotted them crossing the caution line, and immediately confronted them. Kisaragi, thinking they were just civilians, warned them to turn back, explaining how dangerous the area was. But she brushed off his concerns, stating that today's prophecy was a rank 3 event. The dimensional crack in front of them looked like an intermediate B rank, but it was actually a much bigger threat, a rank 3 disaster codenamed Yellow Journal. She was sure the crack would get bigger, and almost on cue it started widening at an alarming rate. Kisaragi turned, his eyes wide with horror, as the fissure completely tore open. Then, a wave of creatures started pouring out, each one more monstrous than the last. He sharply commanded his squad to get ready for battle, but the response was both immediate and brutal. The creatures overwhelmed his forces in moments, cutting them down with little resistance. Panic set in, and he cursed under his breath, realizing that even B and C rank hunters were struggling to hold their ground then. His attention shifted to something even more dangerous, the immense pressure coming from a boss-level monster. Watching the newcomers stride forward, Kisaragi tried to intervene again, warning them to stay back. But before he could say anything more, the woman pressed her hand to the ground and cast a spell called Trismegistus. Instantly, spears shot up from below, impaling the creatures in a swift, merciless strike. Their bodies collapsed, lifeless, as blood pooled around them. Haneda launched his own attack too. He burst forward with incredible speed, moving fluidly through the battlefield and knocking down every enemy in his path with precise, calculated moves. Kisaragi watched the whole thing and was left speechless. Had always thought he was pretty formidable as an S-rank hunter, but these people were clearly way beyond him. He just couldn't figure out who they were or where they'd come from. Then, the woman turned to Kisaragi and, without a shred of doubt, told him to fall back. As far as they were concerned, he was just a civilian in this situation. Kisaragi's eyes dropped to her hand and he saw an emblem imprinted on her skin. Recognition flashed across his face. He realized they weren't here by chance. They were government operatives. Before he could even process what that meant, a massive hand shot out from the dimensional crack, ripping it open even wider. As the rift grew, a towering beast stepped through. It was Gilia Allner, a being way beyond S rank, looming over them, its monstrous form giving off an overwhelming presence. Without a moment's hesitation, the woman lunged forward, getting ready to strike. Kisaragi shouted, warning her not to be reckless, but she didn't listen. Together, they launched their attack, completely unfazed by the threat in front of them. Hanada quickly started hitting the beast man with a series of kicks, only to realize with shock that his attacks weren't doing anything. The creature's anti-physical armor made his strikes useless, forcing him to pull back just as it lunged toward the woman without hesitation. She started gathering energy in front of her, getting ready to counterattack, but before she could even react, Kannagi suddenly appeared between them. He stopped the Beastman's attack with just his bare hand. The impact made the Beastman explode in a burst of energy, stunning everyone for a moment. Once the dust settled, Hinata recognized the attack. It was a penetration shock. What really shocked him, though, was that Kannagi had taken down an S+ rank monster with one hit. It hit him that Kannaga's strength had grown a lot overnight, even though the woman called out that such force wasn't necessary. He knew that when you're up against an enemy with high physical resistance, striking from within is the most effective way to go. Head learned this from one tack, the Fist Saint, who'd taught him the basics of penetration attacks just the night before. After that, Kannagi turned to the girl and asked for her name, saying Head saved her, so he at least deserved to know that much. She excitedly told him her name was Akane. There wasn't time to dwell on things. Hinata spun back to the battlefield, powering up to take on the new wave of monsters bursting from the crack. The woman wasn't fazed. She unleashed her own attack, drenching her enemies in liquid mercury, then igniting it into a powerful explosion with her Mercurius Reject skill. Together, they pressed forward, seeing how right Kannagi had been earlier. Breaking their enemies from the inside was proving far more effective. She was determined to push on, so she signaled Hinata. Without hesitation, they both headed straight for the dimensional crack. Kisaragi could only watch in disbelief from behind. He knew the world beyond that crack was entirely different, an unknown realm packed with unimaginable dangers. Going inside was pure madness. Before he could even react, they'd already rushed ahead, leaping through the crack without a second thought. Kisaragi was left standing there, surrounded by the lifeless bodies of rank monsters. Then it hit him, these two weren't ordinary fighters at all. They had to be part of that rumored secret organization. The moment they stepped into the dimension, an overwhelming swarm of creatures was waiting for them. Akane quickly assessed the situation. She noted that the monsters were identical to the ones outside, then raised her hand with perfect precision. She conjured a barrage of mercury spears, instantly impaling the creatures. Kannagi, still running, watched her technique and acknowledged her immense power. He finally understood why she was considered the strongest area of effect fighter within the anti-prophecy unit. After they'd defeated the other enemies, Akane now stood in front of a massive bear monster. Just as she was about to attack, though, Hinata leaped toward it. First the bear saw him and swung its claws, but Hinata dodged by, jumping onto the roof. He then followed up with a barrage of kicks all around the beast. Kannagi watched, amazed, as Hinata moved so effortlessly, simply giggling. But then, to his shock, Kannagi suddenly rushed at the bear and unleashed a barrage of kicks just like Hinata had. He even asked Hinata if it looked similar to his own technique. Hinata was taken aback, but he couldn't help but smile in amazement. Once they defeated the monster, they ventured ahead. Akane noticed that the deeper they went, the fewer enemies they encountered. They finally reached a huge, open space that looked just like an arena. Suddenly, they felt an aura all around them, and they knew something was coming. Suddenly, to their shock, a huge, enraged Minotaur warrior monster jumped right in front of them. It wasn't just any Minotaur, it was a boss-blind one with a triples rank power level. Hinata and Kannagi were totally taken aback by how massive it was, but Akane just stood there nonchalantly, wondering if this was really the boss. Then, a bunch of spears shot out from the portal. Akane yelled at the others to hit it with their strongest attacks, saying shed handle whatever came next. Hearing her, Hinata started channeling his energy, while Kannagi just stood in the background, amazed by both of them. But deep down, he knew it probably wouldn't be enough to beat the beast. When Hinata heard him, he was surprised that Kannagi doubted their best attacks. Even though they were hitting it with a barrage of magic, the beast just swung its huge weapon. It created a crater in the ground and sent powerful shockwaves all over the arena. Once the dust settled, they were shocked the beast was completely unharmed even after their powerful hits. The group got ready to fight again. As Kannagi got ready, he suddenly heard someone praising Akane's talent. He recognized the voice. It was Kilik, his founder's spirit. Kilik, who was an alchemist, worried that Akane, with all her purity, agility, and incredible strength, might just waste her talent by dying so young in this fight. Kilik said Akane had tried her best, But this Minotaur was just on a whole different level of power. Shed underestimated the monster's physical resistance, which was at a full 100. Kannagi, getting more concerned, asked what he should do, but Killik just laughed. Meanwhile, Haneda and Akane were really struggling against the beast. They realized they should have brought someone good at magic as Akane glanced at Kannagi. She was taken aback by the strange energy coming off his body. Kannagi had given control of his body to Killik, who then cast his powerful spell, Mercurius, right onto the beast's legs. The spell froze its lower body, completely stunning Akane. She was shocked, not just because Kannagi used the same kind of skill as her, but also because he used it in a way that totally immobilized the beast. Killik, still controlling Kanaga's body, looked at Akane seriously and called her a fool. He then scolded her for not being flexible enough with her expertise, telling her she still needed to learn how to control substances in 3 different forms to really become an alchemist. As Killik spoke, he simultaneously filled the Minotaur's entire body with mercury. Just as the liquid metal started seeping from the monster's mouth, he cast a boiling spell. The mercury inside the beast quickly heated up, boiling from within, and its toxic fumes spread throughout the arena, making it hard for the others to breathe. Akane watched, amazed, realizing Killik hadn't used brute force. Had used extreme temperatures to take down the monster instead. Meanwhile, the Minotaur writhed in agony, its body overheating from the inside. While he was casting the spell, Killik casually told Kannagi he wanted to make Akane his disciple. Kannagi, though, just brushed it off as a joke. Eventually, the boiling mercury overwhelmed the Minotaur, turning it into a lifeless heap on the ground. And just like that, the day's mission, beating the boss, which was classified as a level 3 prophecy, ended in victory. Akane watched in disbelief, unable to grasp what she'd just seen. Kannagi had used a skill that should only be available to an awakener living inside a crest. Akane knew he had to be in the same class as Hiko, but had still managed to use alchemy at her level. Still shocked, she demanded to know who Kannagi really was. With a confident smile, Kannagi reached out his hand and introduced himself. Akane, annoyed but intrigued, reluctantly shook his hand, telling him she'd definitely remember him. Haneda beamed with happiness, seeing Kannagi finally get Akane's recognition. Meanwhile, Kisaragi and his men were still waiting outside. To their shock, the dimensional crack started closing. Just as it was about to seal completely, the trio jumped out just in time. Kannagi asked if the mission was officially over, and he was told they just needed to report back to headquarters. As they talked about what to do next, Kisaragi came up to them, thanking them for saving his team. He promised he wouldn't try to dig into their identities or what happened inside. Akane thanked him for understanding, and suggested he put details about the emblem in his report. That would explain everything to the authorities. As the trio started walking away, Kisaragi offered his help if they ever got into trouble. But Akane turned back and said they'd probably never meet again, telling him he should go back to his normal life. Hearing this, Kisaragi realized that, in the end, they were just civilians. They were people who lived in a world he couldn't reach. On May 11th, a red flash streaked through the streets of an prefecture village. A guard spots it, but they're totally baffled, unable to tell what it is. Then, all of a sudden, a deafening, sky-piercing roar rips through the village. Back at Anti-Prophecy HQ, the trio gets out of their car, and Akane reminds them they need to write up their report for headquarters. But then Haneda gets a message on his phone. They're being called to the lab. That's pretty unusual, especially right after a mission. Curious, they head over to the Anti-Prophecy HQ lab, where 2 people are already waiting, one person standing on a stage while the others sitting in the stands. The one sitting then says, in a really authoritative voice, that Akane took way too long to handle a rank 3 disaster. Kannagi immediately recognizes him. It's the red-haired guy from earlier. Akane, though, is enraged by his condescending attitude. She's annoyed he's acting like he's the leader when he isn't. Haneda quickly steps in to try and calm things down, asking what Director Kurihara needs. Turns out the man on the stage is the director himself. Once everyone settles down, he plays a video. The analysis team sent. The video shows a glowing, red-hot piece of charcoal, which the director explains is a prophecy grimoire. He explains they found it in a volcanic region, and they've been analyzing it ever since. Kannagi wonders if it's even possible to read a grimoire that's in such bad shape. But the director, adjusting his glasses, reveals they managed to get some info out of it using AI and X-ray tech, even though what it says isn't clear yet, but what they did manage to decipher was one prophecy that clearly mentions Japan. Everyone in the room is shocked, especially Akane, because this is a totally new prophecy they've never seen before. The director goes on to explain that anti-prophecy research is really advanced, gathering info from all over the world. So finding an unknown prophecy like this is highly unusual. But this situation is different. The red-haired man immediately gets it. The four of them have to investigate it. The director praises his insight and says this mission would normally go to their usual members, but they're not available right now. Hearing that, Kannagi realizes this must be why Midori wasn't there when they got back. The director then orders them to leave right away and promises that more details will come via email. Kannagi's stunned they got another mission so fast. But the red-haired man just tells him hell, get used to it. Feeling really uneasy, Kannagi clenches his fists as a chilling thought sinks in. This time, the fate of the world might really be on the line. Suu slammed his hand on the table and stood up. He announced in a really bossy tone that he and his 3 subordinates would be taking on the mission. Akane was clearly annoyed. He was acting like a boss again as they left. The director gave them a final warning. He told them to be cautious since they didn't know how severe the mission was. He also reminded them that even if the prophecy started unfolding, they'd have to wait for the main force before doing anything drastic. In the car, Kannagi felt uneasy about all the mission's unknown dangers from the front seat. Suu suggested they get some rest. He noted that Kannagi had just finished his first mission, but Akane, driven by pride, refused. She insisted he had no right to give her orders to her surprise. Though, both Haneda and Kannagi immediately accepted his offer and dozed off within moments. Akane was determined to stay awake and struggled to fight off sleep. But as the night got deeper, exhaustion finally took over, and she drifted off too. Sometime later, the car stopped. Akane stirred awake and noticed the vehicle was empty. Alarmed, she rushed outside and found the others standing on a cliff, staring down at a glowing light below them. What she saw left her in utter disbelief. A massive magic circle sprawled across the ground, its scale far beyond anything they'd imagined. Haneda quickly grasped how serious the situation was. It was far worse than they'd expected. The prophecy was nearly complete. Skeletal figures were emerging from the ground. Still trapped inside enormous crystals, their eerie glow cast an ominous light over the entire area. It sent chills down their spines, as they realized they might already be too late. These skeletons were the 23 residents of the village mentioned in the report. Suu recalled a similar incident from the past. 30 years ago, the Wakayama mansion had mysteriously vanished, and a dimensional rift had nearly opened. As he explained this, the massive pillar at the center of the magic circle began to erupt with bursts of energy. Noticing this, Suu urged them to move quickly. Haneda drew his sword and asked what they should do. Suu revealed that they had to stop it. Akane quickly reminded him of the director's orders. They'd been told to wait for more orders, but before they could even discuss it, they felt a huge aura behind them. When they turned around, they saw Kannagi covered in massive energy and ready for a fight. The group immediately realized Kannagi felt much stronger than before. Even so, Suu wasn't fazed at all. He just smirked, leaped forward, and told the others to come with him. Everyone rushed after him, though Akane warned him not to be so reckless. As they charged down toward the magic circle, Hinoki and the mage suddenly picked up a smell in the air. It felt eerily familiar, a scent they'd come across many times in their lives. Just then, the ground trembled violently, and with an explosive burst, a huge hand shot up from under the earth. Hinoki's eyes went wide in shock. He now knew exactly what they were smelling. It was the stench of a forbidden technique, the very prophecy written in the Book of Scorching Heat. Hinoki explained that, long ago during the Epsi period, an awakener named Bandu Shirjima, who was the leader of the Dark Magus, had committed genocide. The Onmyogus eventually killed him, but an entire village got caught up in the whole ordeal. Shirjima had collected the blood of those fallen villagers and used it to draw a magic circle, making sure he'd be reincarnated 1,000 years later. His goal? To devour everyone and rule the world as a demon king. Before he died, Head left behind a forbidden technique that showed how living beings would be sacrificed for his resurrection. Now, in the present, Shirjima has been reincarnated as a boss whose rank no one knows. His mission is clear. His mission: to fulfill the prophecy of scorching heat. He looked down at his hands and scowled. Realizing Head been brought back with way less power than Head expected, he wondered if there weren't enough sacrifices for the ritual. As he looked around, he noted with amusement that even after 1,000 years, the place hadn't changed at all. But his lips curved into a maniacal grin when he spotted the anti-prophecy unit coming closer. He just thought they were more sacrifices for him to take channeling his dark arts. He unleashed Plate of Een, causing a huge explosion right under the charging anti-prophecy unit. Kannagi's alarmed when the blast hits Hinata and Akane, but they're fine once the dust clears. Then, his expression darkens as he sees a dark magic circle appear under where they landed. It's the Death Realm dark art. Hundreds of spirits come out of the circle, reaching with their ghostly hands to grab Hinata and Akane. They struggle, quickly realizing Shijima's much more skilled than they thought. As Shirjima watches his spell work, he suddenly feels something behind him. It's Kannagi hitting him with a surprise attack. Shirjima easily dodges, bending and sidestepping without any effort. He smirks, calling Kannagi an amateur, then casts Plate of Een right under him. The blast goes off, but to Shijima's surprise, Kannagi's unharmed. Kannagi hits back with his Thunderbolt Hadad skill, but Shirjima blocks it by using his own dark magic. Even though he stopped the attack, Shijima's impressed by Kannagi's skill choice. Out of the smoke, Su walks up behind Shirjima and uses the Chrysanthemum spell, sending a bunch of sharp knives flying at him. Shijima's surprised but easily dodges by jumping into the air. While he's up there, Su uses another spell, showing he already knew Shirjima wouldn't be taken down by such a weak skill. Su slams his weapon down and uses the Autumn skill, making knives rain from the sky, but Shirjima just smiles, calling it a rain of mere lights. He then morphs his hand into a Suwa, who blocks it, but the recoil is significant. After that block, Shirjima realizes Suwa's probably the strongest one there. Kannagi, watching from the side, thinks Shijima's power is endless. He's totally different from any enemy they've fought before. Shirjima himself feels even stronger than the founders. While Kannagi's thinking this over, he hears his friends calling him from behind. He turns, and is shocked to see Akane and Hinata getting hit by black art skills. They manage to escape the attack and both start charging at Shirjima, who's still fighting Su. As he's fighting them, Shirjima summons 3 skeleton demons to handle Akane and Hinata, who are still rushing him. Hinata sees a demon appear right in front of him and kicks it, but to his surprise, it does absolutely nothing. These monsters' bodies are as tough as the minotaurs they fought before. While Shirjima and Suwa kept trading blow after blow, one of the skeleton demons stood right in front of Kannagi, blocking his way. Shirjima even mocked Suwa, telling him he wouldn't get any help from his friends, but right after Shirjima said that, Suwa slashed him straight on the shoulder. "I don't need any help," he declared, then pointed at Shirjima. "Stay away. I only rely on my own ability." Shirjima just wiped the blood from his wound and started yelling like a madman, screaming that he didn't need anyone either and would devour everyone with that. He charged right at Suwa, who barely managed to block the attack just inches from his body. As Suwa struggled to hold off Shijima's relentless assault, he heard someone call his name from behind. It was Kannagi, charging straight for Shirjima. Shirjima was stunned to see Kannagi, especially since Head sent a demon to stop him. He quickly looked back and saw the others still fighting their demons, but the one Head sent after Kannagi lay cut clean in half. While Shirjima was trying to process all this, Kannagi landed a powerful punch right to his face, sending him skidding across the ground. Even Suwa was impressed by the attack. Kannagi then suggested they fight together to beat Shirjima. Suwa was shocked for a second. Kannagi and Akane hadn't even beaten their own opponents yet, but this guy had, and now he was offering to help him. But Suwa's pride got the best of him. He flat out rejected Kannagi's offer, declaring, "I don't need anyone's help. I'm more than enough to fight alone." Kannagi couldn't believe it, but before they could argue anymore, Shirjima suddenly closed and he unleashed his Magatsus breath technique, and a powerful beam blasted straight at both of them. Suwa managed to block it, but Kannagi was sent flying. His body hit hard by the devastating attack. He crashed into a tree, and his vision started blurring as he began to black out. As he drifted into unconsciousness, he saw Hinoki and the mage's souls standing right in front of him. Hinoki told him Head fainted, and that's why they'd summoned him into his own consciousness. Even though his body was bruised and battered and racked with pain, Kannagi tried to stand up, desperately asking them to send him back. He had to fight, but before they could even answer, a deep, authoritative voice echoed through the space, commanding him to step back from the battle. Meanwhile, outside, Suo was barely holding his own against Shijima's relentless attacks. Shijima smirked, even praising Suo for thinking just like him, believing they didn't need anyone else to fight their battles with a sinister grin and that insatiable urge to devour everything. Shijima poured his power into his next attack. He struck down with such force that Suo's sword shattered in half even though Suo was stunned. He quickly summoned another blade and swung it at Shijima. But Shijima dodged it effortlessly, bending backward with an almost unnatural flexibility. Shijima clearly seemed to be enjoying himself more as Suo kept struggling. Meanwhile, back in the spiritual realm, Kannagi's spirit form watched the fight unfold. They knew Shijima was stronger than anyone else there. Hinoki told Kannagi this was way beyond what he could handle, and the mage added that Shijima's precision was terrifyingly high. If more humans had been in that place, Shijima might have already become a demon king. She warned Kannagi that if Shijima took his life too, he'd get even stronger and wreak havoc on civilization. She even said their discovery of the grimoire was just a coincidence. Then Hinoki stepped forward, asking Kannagi to lend them his body so they could deal with it. But to their complete shock, Kannagi flat out refused. He apologized but said firmly, "This isn't training, this is real." He explained he had overcome this obstacle himself, just like he'd have to in the future. Full of confidence and determination, he looked at them and asked if they agreed. The mage tried to argue, but Hinoki interrupted him with a laugh. He told Kannagi, "You've already defeated us." Hinoki put a hand on Kannagi's shoulder, reminding him of his claim to surpass the founders. Then he urged Kannagi to go, use everything he's learned, and do things his way. This really boosted Kannagi's confidence. With a determined look, he faced the battlefield, asking the founders to watch over him. Without a moment's hesitation, he dashed toward the field where Shijima and Su were still fighting hard. Su looked battered and beaten. Just as Su opened his eyes, Shijima struck again, sending him flying through the air while Su was airborne. Shijima got ready for his final blow to finish him off, but just as Su braced for impact, someone grabbed him midair. Kannagi grabbed both Su and his sword. While still midair, he quickly burrowed Su's sword, and with a swift move, he threw Su toward the ground, safely out of the way of Shijima's incoming magic beam. Su landed hard on the ground, and Shijima immediately turned his attention to Kannagi, who was still in the air. Shijima releases another Magatsus breath right at him, but he's shocked. Kannagi is calmly using Hinoki's one-handed sword style with sharp focus. Kannagi slashes right through Shijima's breath attack, cutting it cleanly in half. Then, with precise control, he strikes Shijima's arm, cutting it clean off his body. Shijima is stunned, horrified, and speechless. He doesn't know what just happened. Shaking with fury, he yells about his identity, but Kannagi, looking completely determined, responds coldly that he's the one who will surpass the founders. The mage watching asks Hinoki if Kannagi will beat the Dark Magus, but Hinoki himself doesn't know yet. Still, Hinoki is certain Kannagi isn't foolish. He suspects Kannagi might have learned something new while sleeping in the car on their way here. A wide smile spreads across Hinoki's face, making him wonder if it's something even he doesn't understand. Su is just as shocked, watching Kannagi move so efficiently and fluidly. Only moments ago, Head refused Kannagi's help. But now, that very help is saving his life. Meanwhile, Kannagi keeps relentlessly slashing at Shijima, forcing Shijima to teleport backward. Shijima counters with his dark art skill, Pomegranate, sending a barrage of energy blasts. Kannagi tries to dodge them, but he quickly realizes they're tracking him. Kannagi jumps around, trying to get away, but the blasts just keep chasing him. Suddenly, he remembers one of the founder's skills. Aftershock. He slams his foot into the ground, raising a stone barrier in front of him to block the incoming attacks. Shijima is surprised by Kannagi's tactics, but quickly throws more blasts his way. Kannagi responds by using the shattered stone fragments to shield himself again. Then, seeing his chance, Kannagi combines two skills and flashes behind Shijima. But Shijima barely manages to dodge just in time. He counters immediately, unleashing his Plate of Een blast and striking Kannagi. Kannagi takes the hit, but he absorbs most of the impact using an airborne rock as a springboard. He lunges at Shirjima, remembering the lessons from the founders. Shirjima dodges again, but the sheer variety of techniques Kannagi uses leaves him stunned. Even the founders watching from afar are just as shocked by Kannagi's quick growth and constant assault, but Shirjima isn't done yet. With a dark glare, he activates his forbidden art, summoning a towering skeletal monstrosity by fusing skeletons together. This giant creature looms over everyone, giving off a powerful, evil aura. Shirjima smirks. This is the end, he says. The giant skeleton swings its massive hand toward Kannagi, and the founders yell at him to run. But Kannagi just stands there, motionless, staring at the attack coming his way. He's deep in thought, realizing he still doesn't have enough power to beat Shirjima. Even if he gave it his all, he knows he needs something more, something beyond his current limits. Recalling the lessons from the mage and Hinoki, Kannagi remembers how to wield Shining Flame and Hinoki's one-handed sword technique. He recalls Hinoki teaching him the wave blade attack and various slashes. Drawing upon both teachings, Kannagi channels Shining Flame into his hand, while infusing his sword with Hinoki's skill, transforming his weapon into a blazing blade. The mage and Hinoki watch in shock. Kannagi has just achieved the impossible. Holding his newly empowered weapon, Kannagi stands ready. The technique he has just executed is called Blazing Fire Cutting Blade. Without hesitation, he dashes the skeletal beast, swinging his fiery sword as Shirjima watches in utter disbelief, remembering Hinoki's teachings about the blade and mage's magic arts. Kannagi desires more than just those two. With that determination, he manages to use the Blazing Fire Cutting Blade skill, engulfing his sword in flames. With a swift swing, he cleaves through the skeleton, splitting it from head to toe while also slashing Shirjima in half. Everyone is shocked by this feat, combining two magic skills in such a way. The alchemist founder is particularly amazed, calling Kannagi an irregular for his ability to switch and combine all kinds of skills. He never expected Kannagi to be capable of merging techniques so effortlessly, and he suspects there may be even more to his potential. Suddenly, the alchemist vanishes, leaving Hinoki confused. Mage, overhearing his words, agrees, realizing they may have underestimated Kannagi's abilities. She now feels a twinge of concern, wondering if it's wise to raise someone like him. However, Hinoki is thrilled by Kannagi's power and eager to see just how far he can grow. As Kannagi lands on the ground, exhausted, he is shocked to see Shirjima, who had been cut in half, beginning to regenerate from his own blood. Furious, Shirjima snarls that if the attack had hit his head, he might have died. Channeling a dark energy, he forms a death ball, vowing to end things himself. But just as he speaks, Tsu suddenly slashes his throat from behind. Shirjima is decapitated, caught completely off guard. As his body collapses, Tsuo grabs Kannagi, who has fallen unconscious. Holding him, Tsu recalls a distant memory. His older brother once carried him in the same way. It had been a freezing night under a bridge, with snow covering the ground. His brother had promised to get food for him in the morning. As Tsu drifted off to sleep, they had heard the sounds of a grand parade above the bridge, others celebrating while they shivered in the cold, stomachs empty. This memory reminds Tsuo why he chose solitude. Shirjima had tried to manipulate him by preying on his loneliness, but now, looking at Kannagi, he realizes something: he is not truly alone. And even if he is, he can endure it. As he ponders this, the barrier around them begins to crack. Akane and Hinata rush in, immediately worried upon seeing Kannagi unconscious. Once they confirm he's only passed out, Hinata notices the barrier is collapsing from the inside. She warns that they need to act quickly. Hinata asks what would happen if the energy within the barrier explodes outward. Tsuo grips his sword tightly, revealing that if that happens, they will all be crushed to death. Their only option is to hit it with their strongest attack and try to deflect it. Though Tsuo says this with confidence, deep inside, he isn't sure if they are capable of it in their current state, but they have no choice. As they brace themselves, Kannagi, still unconscious, suddenly lifts his sword, channeling energy into it. Tsuo notices this in shock inside Kannagi's mind. Hinoki takes control, guiding his body. As the barrier explodes, everyone unleashes their full power, while Hinoki executes his one-handed styles, splitting cloud attack outside the barrier. A red-haired man rushes toward the scene, Accompanied by two men, his subordinates warn him that the barrier is about to collapse. Suddenly, it bursts open. The men fear they might be too late, but to their astonishment, a brilliant beam of blue light shoots into the sky from Kannagi's sword. The red-haired man watches in awe, recognizing the light as a flawless sword technique, free of hesitation. His name is Tsuo Makoto, the captain of the anti-prophecy unit. Observing the spectacle before him, he wonders whose work this could be. A while later, on a plane flying over Peru, Midori is on a call with Makoto, amazed that the new member has just stopped the unknown prophecy. Meanwhile in Japan, Makoto, still on the call, is facing a rank 1 prophecy, one that, according to him, is on a much higher level than what they encountered before. Midori, instead of boarding the plane, sits on top of it, smiling as he reflects on how much the anti-prophecy unit has grown, even though he isn't there to witness it firsthand. However, his amusement is short-lived when Makoto reveals that the core member who stopped the prophecy was none other than Kannagi, the same Kannagi who had only joined the team 2 days ago. Shocked, Makoto desperately demands to know who he really is. Without hesitation, Midori confidently declares that Kannagi is the one who will bring an end to all prophecies. They had been anticipating his arrival for quite some time. There was a lingering sense of expectation surrounding him, as if he was the one they had been waiting for. Makoto, skeptical of such high hopes, questions whether their faith in him is truly justified. Instead of arguing, he is simply told to see for himself. Changing the topic, Makoto urges Midori to return. His presence is needed, as facing an opponent of equal strength without him is proving to be a challenge. Midori chuckles, offering a brief apology before shifting focus. Meanwhile, Rin reaches out, his voice carrying urgency as he speaks of a grand prophecy unfolding before them. It is a colossal enemy, a super-rank prophecy, the boss of suicidal infection, Ishtam. As the monstrous being charges toward him, Midori tells Makoto to hold on, assuring him that he will finish up soon. Without hesitation, he extends his hand and unleashes divine wind turbulence. At that very moment, in a hospital ward, Kannagi's eyes snap open. A startled cry escapes his lips as he abruptly sits up. A nurse, noticing his sudden movement, leans over to reassure him. She informs him that he has finally regained consciousness. He has been in the anti-prophecy infirmary, asleep since the end of his mission. Hearing this, Kannagi wonders if he had merely lost consciousness. His sleep had been so deep that he hadn't even entered the spatial realm to train with the founders. The nurse assures him that he is fine, drawing back the curtain before reminding him to call if he needs anything. As the curtain lifts, Kannagi notices Sue sitting nearby, arms crossed, silently watching him. Seeing him, Kannagi wonders if he had been watching over him the entire time he was unconscious. Kannagi looks around and notices that Hanada and Akane are missing. Curious, he asks about them, to which Sue reveals that they are training, frustrated by their perceived uselessness in the last fight. With an accepting tone, Sue calmly states that Kannagi's power was overwhelming. Hearing this compliment from a man like Sue shocks the overpowered boy. But before he can fully process it, Sue suddenly stands and aggressively demands to know who he really is. In less than 2 days after his arrival, Kannagi has already defeated a rank 3 and a potential rank 1 boss, while using a rare fusion spell that Sue has never seen before. Pressing the question again, Sue demands to know Kannagi's true identity and how he too can become like him. As Sue insists on getting answers, Makoto suddenly arrives, asking if Kannagi is the one he's looking for. Kannagi confirms, but Tsuo is taken aback by his older brother's unexpected arrival. Makoto walks past Tsuo, barely glancing at him, while Kannagi hesitantly asks if he really is Tsuo's big brother. The moment the question leaves his lips, Makoto suddenly draws his sword and swings it inches away from everyone in the room. Both Tsu and Kannagi are caught off guard. Dodging the attack, Kannagi wonders if it's some kind of test, while Makoto, equally surprised, marvels at how a mere trainee managed to evade his strike. Makoto confirms that it was indeed a test, and Kannagi has passed. Without hesitation, he introduces himself as the captain of Tsu's squad, Tsu Makoto. The realization hits Kannagi hard. Makoto truly is Tsuo's older brother. After a brief pause, Makoto announces that due to Kannagi's extraordinary performance against the rank 1 disaster, he will be joining his squad temporarily. The announcement stuns Kannagi, but Tsuo is even more shocked. A tinge of jealousy creeps into him. Despite being Makoto's younger brother, even he is not allowed to join his squad. Wasting no time, Makoto orders Kannagi to follow him for a briefing. While in the background, Tsuo clenches his fists so tightly in frustration that his knuckles begin to bleed. Meanwhile, in the training area, the anti-prophecy unit duo is training hard. Akane wields multiple weapons, while Haneda focuses on blocking her attacks. However, no matter how much they push themselves, they know that reaching Kannagi's level is nearly impossible. As they continue practicing, Midori suddenly walks in, announcing his arrival with chocolates from Peru. To his shock, they completely ignore the chocolates and rush toward him, eagerly asking how long he will be staying in Japan. When Midori reveals he will be there for a week, the duo immediately insists on training under him during that time. They refuse to let Kannagi surpass them without a fight. Taken aback, Midori hadn't expected them to be this determined. He agrees to train them but then asks about Tsuo, wondering if he wants to join. Just as he finishes speaking, Tsuo arrives, his expression filled with sheer determination, as he confirms that he will be joining as well. Meanwhile, in the hall, Kannagi keeps pace with Makoto's fast strides as he leads the way. Back in the training room, the group is shocked to see Tsuo just as determined to join them. Tsuo reveals that Kannagi has been scouted by his older brother to temporarily join his squad. This revelation stuns the duo, making them realize just how far Kannagi has progressed. Being personally recruited by Makoto is no small feat. However, Tsuo sees this as a sign of his own shortcomings compared to Kannagi, believing he must improve himself even more. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Kannagi, growing curious, asks Makoto about the meeting. Makoto reveals that it concerns their next mission, for which they will depart the following morning. As they walk, Makoto suddenly stops and asks if Kannagi is close to his younger brother. Recalling their last battle together, when Tsuo lent him his sword, Kannagi excitedly confirms that he is. Though Makoto acts indifferent, he secretly worries about his brother but never shows it. This has led Tsuo to mistakenly believe that his brother hates him and doesn't care about him. The truth is, when Makoto visited them before, he didn't ignore Tsuo. He simply couldn't bear to look at his wounds. However, this misunderstanding made Tsuo believe his brother was disregarding him, fueling his determination to risk his life and grow stronger just to get Makoto's attention. On the other hand, Makoto doesn't want Tsuo to become stronger, he just wants him to be safe. This deep misunderstanding drives Tsuo's resolve to surpass Kannagi, believing that only then will his brother acknowledge him. One day, he hopes to defeat Makoto himself. Meanwhile, Kannagi, still curious, presses Makoto further, and Makoto finally admits that he truly does care about his little brother. Kannagi finds this heartwarming. Back in the training area, as Tsuo explains everything to the group, Akane finds it confusing. Even though Tsuo talks about surpassing his brother and proving himself, he still respects him deeply. Continuing her training with Hanada, Akane remarks that, in the end, Tsuo just wants his brother's attention. Hanada finds this touching, but Akane's words trigger something in Tsuo, making him enraged. Meanwhile, in the meeting, Kannagi learns about the 3 core rules of the squad. First, be swift. Second, maintain offensive pressure. Third, overcome weaknesses. Within the Counterforce division, Makoto's squad is considered the strongest in terms of combat ability. The squad operates with a minimum of 7 members, designed to be a small but elite force. Their primary targets are rank 1 and above level threats. Aboard the helicopter, as Makoto's squad is escorted to their mission, a squad member named Jakaru casually remarks that 90 of the team's power comes from their captain, while the rest are just extras. Since Kannagi is only a temporary member, he isn't expected to do much. However, while Jakaru is explaining this, Kannagi is distracted, busy on his phone. Jakaru points this out, prompting Kannagi to apologize, explaining that he needs to contact his friends. Jakaru, confused, asks what he means by contact. Kannagi is trying to contact the other members of the anti-prophecy group, as the founders keep nagging him about it. While the group is training, they receive his message, and reading it shocks everyone, especially Tsu, who wonders what the hell Kannagi is thinking by sending it. They immediately show it to Midori, who discovers that the message contains 3 separate pieces of advice, each tailored for a different person. The detailed guidance on how to get stronger impresses Midori. With a smile, he extends his hand and asks if they will follow the advice or reject it. Seeing it as a challenge, everyone accepts, especially Tsu, who is enraged that Kannagi has essentially salted their wounds. Back on the plane, Jakaru informs Kannagi that they have arrived at their destination. Wiping the window, Kannagi is amazed by the sight of a vast, snowy mountain terrain, with enormous crystal spikes jutting out of the ground. Their mission is to deal with a rank 1 prophecy, Frozen Earth. This disaster threatens to freeze the entire planet, as the affected areas are expanding at an alarming rate. If left unchecked, the whole Earth could be consumed, ending all life. This phenomenon is occurring simultaneously in 17 different locations across multiple countries, many of them in urban areas, which only worsens the crisis. Vice Captain Kashi briefs the squad on the situation, stressing that they cannot afford any delays, as reports indicate the freezing effect is spreading faster than anticipated. Leading the mission, Makoto orders the squad to jump from the helicopter's back hatch, as it can no longer proceed safely. Before they jump, he reminds them that no human lives should be harmed. To motivate everyone, he commands them to chant the 3 squad rules, and they all shout them in unison. Standing at the back, Kannagi reflects on his last battle, where he once again relied on Hinoki in the end. Determined to grow stronger during this temporary mission, he sees this as a valuable opportunity to learn from the other members. As everyone leaps from the helicopter, Kannagi resolves to complete this mission on his own. This is his first rank 1 prophecy at 10:17 a.m. Everyone lands safely on the ground. The air is freezing, and despite being an Awakener, Jakaru catches a cold, questioning how the temperature is affecting him. Kashi explains that the cold is far worse than the reports indicated, which might be the reason. He also informs the squad that the area is vast, and suggests setting up a camp midway. Hearing this, Makoto considers something but keeps his to himself. Meanwhile, Kannagi asks Jakaru if the prophecy, Frozen Earth, is recorded in any prophecy book. Jakaru denies it, revealing that the anti-prophecy unit predicted it using their unique skills. While many prophecies exist, this is the first time a member has successfully identified a rank 1 prophecy. This is why Makoto's squad was chosen for the mission, given its severity. Kannagi's question is answered, but Kashi notices that he seems slightly nervous. Kashi reassures him that nervousness is better than letting his guard down, but he shouldn't let it become a burden. Jakaru places a hand on Kannagi's shoulder, repeating Kashi's words and reminding him that he is moving with the best crew of the anti-prophecy unit. Kashi yells at Jakaru for being too relaxed, prompting Jakaru to apologize instantly. Suddenly, Jakaru raises his hand, reporting that his radar has detected enemies at 2 o'clock, approximately 200 meters away. Kashi acknowledges the report and vanishes in an instant, only to reappear moments later. She confirms that she scouted ahead and saw 30 monsters with an estimated rank of S. These creatures belong to the ice gargoyle race of the Tice tribe. Hearing this, Makoto immediately orders his unit to annihilate the enemy. The squad charges toward the incoming monsters in a highly coordinated manner, their teamwork and situational awareness leaving Kannagi in awe. They operate on an entirely different level compared to trainees, making him realize that these are elite warriors far beyond the regular members. Eager to join the fight, Kannagi asks for permission, which Makoto grants. Dismissing the enemies is nothing more than S. With permission secured, Kannagi launches forward and kicks a monster in the head. However, to his shock, the creature explodes, sending shards flying in all directions. Kashi, skillfully evading a flashy monster's attack, warns everyone that some extremely powerful monsters are mixed in with the rest. Meanwhile, Kannagi activates his fire-cutting blade and completely obliterates a monster with a fiery attack, sending it flying. Witnessing this, Jakaru is stunned that someone like Kannagi used a Fury Sword skill. Kashi is impressed, while Makoto, with just a few swings of his sword, effortlessly slices through the remaining monsters. He also takes note of Kannagi's fiery sword and realizes that the blue light beam he saw earlier must have come from it. With the monsters defeated, the squad sets up camp in the mountains and begins eating. During their meal, Kashi asks Jakaru what else he saw on his radar. Jakaru reports that there are no boss-level threats within a 10 kilometers range. Hearing this, Kashi sighs in relief, confirming that they can spend the night there. However, she soon wonders, where have Kannagi and the captain gone? On the other side, Kannagi sits by his own campfire, attempting to fuse his spells together just as he did before. However, as he focuses on the process, the captain suddenly arrives from behind and calls him out for his enthusiasm about training. Caught off guard, Kannagi nearly jumps out of his skin as Makoto scared the hell out of him by approaching so silently. After calming him down, Makoto sits beside Kannagi and asks if this is his first time camping and whether he finds it difficult. Kannagi enthusiastically claims that he's fine, but to his surprise, Makoto casually states that he just wants to go home and smoke. Kannagi is taken aback. He never expected someone like the captain to talk about smoking. However, to Kannagi's shock, Makoto then reveals that he's desperate to smoke his cat. Confused and alarmed, Kannagi misinterprets his words, thinking he's talking about drugs. He immediately questions the captain about his cat, to which Makoto, getting uncomfortably close, pulls out his phone and shows him a picture. Kannagi asks for the cat's name, and Makoto reveals it's Oribe. As Kannagi examines the picture, he notices the cat's ferocious gaze, but instead asks if Makoto really misses him. To his surprise, Makoto denies it, revealing that Oribe is a complete menace, always scratching his stuff, vomiting everywhere, and being an overall nightmare. Yet despite all of that, Makoto admits that the cat is still adorable, just like his younger brother Sue. Kannagi finds it strange that Makoto is talking this way, but he listens as the captain, in a hopeful voice, expresses his wish to one day talk with Sue the same way he's talking with Kannagi now. Kannagi, being an only child, admits he can't relate, but he offers a suggestion. Perhaps Makoto should treat Sue the same way he treats his cat. Hearing this, Makoto smiles and agrees. He then shows Kannagi some videos on his phone, shocking him with footage of the captain treating his cat like a baby. Amused, Makoto questions whether that kind of behavior is really okay. Then, with a soft expression, he looks at Kannagi and asks if they can practice together. In his mind, Kannagi doesn't really want to, but before he can answer, Kashi arrives, searching for them. She requests that they return to camp, reminding them that they have to depart early the next morning. Makoto agrees without complaint. That night, however, Makoto and his crew remain unaware of a mysterious figure venturing into the snowy land. The person, casually dressed as if heading to the beach, moves deeper into the frozen terrain. When stopped, he claims to be on a mission to fulfill the prophecy of that place. Holding a small book in his hand, he declares it an important mission. He is a solo awakener heading toward the very same mountain as Makoto and his squad. At the camp, as Kannagi sleeps, he finds himself training in his dreams with the founders. Today's lesson is archery, meant to improve his concentration. He practices with a heavy bow under the guidance of Margit, who is instructing him. Noticing Kannagi sweating, Margit asks if it's painful to keep his focus steady. As they train, Hinoki loudly complains about why it isn't a sword training day, but the mage quickly silences him, reminding him that it was his turn the previous day. Despite the noise, Margit is impressed that Kannagi remains undisturbed, showing significant improvement in maintaining his concentration compared to their first session. Kannagi explains that he is currently on a mission with an amazing team, which motivates him to give his best. With his focus locked on the target, he releases the arrow, hitting the bullseye with perfect accuracy. Margit is amazed by the precision, while Kannagi drops to the ground, sighing in relief. Margit reminds him not to forget the feeling and calls it a day for training. Realizing that the session is over, Hinoki gets excited, immediately drawing his sword and ordering Kannagi to get up for sword training. However, just as they are about to start, Kannagi is suddenly awakened by his crew, as it's time to continue their journey. Before setting off, Makoto briefs everyone, stating that today, they will slay the boss tied to the prophecy. As they venture ahead, they encounter more monsters. This time, a flock of blue birds. As the squad charges toward them, the founders within Kannagi comment on how easy this mission should be, given the team's strength. However, the mage notices that one of the older founders appears uneasy, sensing that something is off about the fight. After a battle, the crew successfully clears the monsters, clearing their path forward. Makoto then orders Jakaru to scout ahead. Jakaru reports that approximately 2,000 meters from their position, there is likely a major boss and it is heading straight for them. He then delivers horrifying news that the monster will reach them in just 10 seconds. Within moments, a towering figure known as the unknown god, Calamitas, comes rushing toward them with a ferocious, maniacal expression. Her aura is completely different from any monster they have faced before. Makoto immediately orders his crew to engage, and they all flash toward the boss in perfect coordination. Jakaru uses his abilities to shackle the creature, while Kashi slashes at it from all angles. However, to their shock, their attacks leave no visible damage. The boss remains completely unscathed, despite their well-executed combo. Just as the boss is about to counterattack, it suddenly senses something approaching from above. It's Kannagi descending with a powerful sword strike. Remembering what Akane and Hinoki taught him about executing a vertical slash, he unleashes his strongest attack first, ready to strike with full force. Combining his power, Kannagi attacks with his blazing, fire-cutting blade, sending a beam of fire toward the boss. However, to his shock, it has no effect. The boss immediately counters, swinging her own sword and sending Kannagi crashing into the ground. Hearing the powerful impact, Jakaru momentarily believes Kannagi has just died. However, Kannagi survives, having landed on an ice crystal that cushions his fall. Meanwhile, Kashi, still fighting, realizes why this boss is ranked number 1. She glances toward Makoto. It is now up to him to save them. Makoto draws his sword, and as he does, Jakaru instantly shackles Kannagi and lifts him out of the fight, claiming that if they interfere, they will only get in their captain's way. As they retreat, the boss swings at Makoto with all her might. The sheer force of the attack creates a powerful shockwave, making Kannagi worry for Makoto's safety. However, to his astonishment, Makoto stops the attack inches away from hitting him. The boss swings again, and once more, Makoto blocks it effortlessly. Without hesitation, he counters with a devastating slash, severing one of the boss' arms. Watching this, Hinoki is beyond impressed, exclaiming that he wants to do the same. However, Kannagi, growing concerned, firmly refuses to let Hinoki take over his body. Meanwhile, standing before the wounded boss, Makoto calmly declares that he had wanted his crew to gain experience fighting a boss of this level. But now, he will end it himself. Hearing this, his crew quickly deploys a barrier around them for protection. As soon as the barrier is up, Makoto channels his red dragon skill into his sword, unleashing blazing flames all around. He then combines it with crimson light, sending a massive inferno straight at the boss, which obliterates nearly half of her body. Kannagi, witnessing this, is utterly shocked. Makoto used a sword flame technique similar to his own, but it was far stronger. Without the protective barrier, they all might have been reduced to ashes. Kannagi quietly apologizes to the boss, saying it was his duty to protect the world. Then, out of nowhere, he meows like a cat, causing an unbearable wave of second-hand embarrassment to wash over everyone. Observing the battle closely, Kannagi realizes that Makoto's technique is vastly different from Hinoki's. His skills are truly on another level. Amazed, Kannagi now deeply desires to learn from him. Meanwhile, Makoto delivers a final follow-up slash, cutting the boss completely in half. However, in an instant, a flash of light streaks through the battlefield. Makoto's arm is suddenly severed. In disbelief, he turns, only to see a gaping hole in Jakaru's body. Kannagi frantically looks around, horror gripping him as he realizes what just happened. One by one, his comrades' bodies are being torn apart, blood spilling onto the ground. They are all dropping dead before his eyes. Kannagi, seeing Jakaru falling, rushes to help him. But with the last of his strength, Jakaru pushes him away. Stumbling backward, Kannagi watches in disbelief as the comrades he fought alongside just seconds ago are now collapsing before his eyes. Despite being on the brink of death, Jakaru is filled with regret. His radar failed to detect the incoming attack, leading to this devastating loss. As he falls, he apologizes to his captain and crashes onto the ground, hoping his team has at least seen where the attack came from. Kashi is safe, but several other members are struck by the same beam, piercing straight through them. Makoto, clutching his severed arm, yells at his team to take cover in the terrain, calling it a skill attack. Without hesitation, everyone obeys and runs for their lives. While fleeing, Kashi calls out to a fallen comrade, urging him to follow. However, he hesitates, worried about their captain, who is severely wounded. The attack that severed Makoto's arm cannot be blocked, not even by a barrier because its properties allow it to annihilate everything it touches. Suddenly, another beam hurtles toward Makoto, but he narrowly dodges it by leaping into the air. Kashi watches in growing fear as the boss unleashes a relentless barrage of attacks while simultaneously regenerating. Realizing they must take down the boss in one decisive burst, she turns to Kannagi, only to find him kneeling on the ground, frozen in shock. Kannagi stares at the of his fallen comrades, his voice barely above a whisper as he pleads with the founder, Valentine, asking if she can resurrect them. However, with an embarrassed expression, Valentine apologizes. She cannot bring back the dead. Kannagi falls silent for a moment, then takes a deep breath. He calls upon all the founders, admitting that while he wanted to handle everything himself this time, he now realizes he may need their help once again. Without hesitation, Hinoki steps forward and takes control of his body. Meanwhile, Makoto, analyzing the attack, realizes that it completely bypassed Jakaru's radar. Since Jakaru's radar can only detect threats within a 3-kilometer range, the attack must have originated from beyond that distance. This single strike not only killed Jakaru, but also severed Makoto's arm, proof that their hidden enemy is at least as strong as he is. Determined not to let his fallen comrades' sacrifices be in vain, Makoto pushes beyond his current limits, channeling power far beyond his normal capacity. He focuses his energy, using his heightened senses to pinpoint a location over 3 kilometers away, despite the obstacles concealing the enemy. Clenching his sword, he remembers those who have fallen today. Their deaths fuel his resolve. With unwavering determination, Makoto charges his blade with crimson light and unleashes a devastating blaze of fire. The scorching inferno rips through the ground, obliterating everything in its path, until, at last, it reveals the enemy who cast the deadly spell. It is the same boy who arrived there alone, casually dressed. He is impressed that Makoto managed to track him down after his attack, just as expected from the captain of the strongest squad. However, Makoto is shocked his attack was completely consumed by this man. The boy claims that if Makoto still had his left arm intact, that attack would have killed him. He is using a spell called Darkness to channel dark orbs around him. As he walks toward Makoto, he launches one of the orbs with the intent to kill. In response, Makoto swings his sword, conjuring an ice barrier. He then counters in an instant, vanishing and reappearing behind the boy, slashing at his neck. But before Makoto can process what just happened, the same devastating beam attack strikes again, tearing a chunk off his torso. The boy remains unharmed, calmly stating that he had anticipated Makoto's attack. However, he adds that Makoto is the one truly close to death. That comment ignites Makoto's rage. With what little strength he has left, he lunges forward, swinging his sword. But the boy effortlessly sidesteps and counters with a powerful kick, landing a direct hit on Makoto's open wound. However, Makoto is one step ahead. Using the opening, he strikes with the back of his sword, sending the boy crashing into the ground. As Makoto watches, he becomes curious. Why did the boy stop using his beam attack after only a few shots? Despite its overwhelming power, It seems he cannot sustain it indefinitely. Realization dawns on him. The boy cannot use his spell continuously. In terms of endurance, they are evenly matched. The boy, after crashing, manages to land on his feet, confirming Makoto's suspicion, but pointing out that they are not in the same condition. Makoto is at a clear disadvantage. One arm severed, half his body missing. However, Arcade Makoto refuses to acknowledge the concept of a disadvantage. He recalls the 3 rules of the Makoto squad, drawing strength from them. Determination floods his body as he readies himself to fight until his last breath. With unwavering resolve, he channels electric fiery energy, burning his own wounds to cauterize them and stop the bleeding. As he does, he roars the squad's 3rd rule into the battlefield. Overcome your weakness. With those words, he unleashes Scarlet Blaze. The boy's eyes narrow. He realizes that Makoto is burning away his own life force to amplify his power. In response, he does the same, fueling his darkness spell with his very essence. Makoto, calling upon the spirits of his fallen comrades, glares at his opponent. His voice booms across the battlefield, warning him not to look down on his squad. Meanwhile, in the back, as Kannagi calls upon his funders for help, his hair turns white as Hinoki takes control of him. The other squad members, who are still running, are suddenly stopped by the boss, who remains strong as she regenerates her arms. Kashi, witnessing this, grows concerned, realizing she cannot subjugate the boss alone. She calls out to Kannagi, who is still kneeling in the back. To her, it seems as though his fighting spirit has completely faded after witnessing his squad members' deaths. It is only natural he was just an ordinary person who recently joined the squad. However, to her shock, Kannagi rises from the ground. In a blinding flash, he dashes forward and lands a devastating kick on the boss, sending her flying. On the other side of the battlefield, Makoto and his opponent continue their fierce exchange, trading blow after blow. Makoto, wielding only half of his sword, unleashes Scarlet Light. The opponent barely dodges by leaning to the side. Despite evading the attack, he grows uneasy. It is getting harder. Makoto's flames, which should have been erased by his darkness spell, are re-emerging and striking him again. Furthermore, there is a limit to how much he can control his darkness manually, and that limit is approaching. Realizing this, he sends a barrage of darkness orbs at Makoto. But Makoto swiftly dodges, seizing an opening to lunge forward and slash his opponent's arm clean off. Now their positions are reversed, however. Despite losing his arm, the opponent leaps forward and drives his knee into Makoto's wounded arm. Makoto collapses to the ground in pain as the opponent slowly approaches. Looking down at him, he claims that losing an arm means nothing. After all, there is still a hole in Makoto's stomach. He then reveals something chilling. He had already anticipated Makoto's strategy. From the very first attack, he knew Makoto would engage in close combat. He acknowledges Makoto's strength, admitting that he always makes the best decisions and never wastes time. However, he also points out Makoto's flaw: he is too predictable. That, he declares, is the reason why Makoto will lose. Reaching into his bag, he pulls out a book. Holding it up, he claims that Makoto's defeat has already been decided by its contents. Makoto's eyes widen in shock as he recognizes it as the Book of Doom. The opponent opens the book, revealing a startling truth. The guy claims that if there is an organization that exists to stop prophecies, then it is only natural that another exists to fulfill them. Makoto is stunned as he never knew such an organization existed. The opponent then makes his final revelation that he is one of the 12 apostles of the apocalypse. He introduces himself as the 12th of darkness, the one destined to fulfill the prophecy. Makoto, still in disbelief, questions the reason behind his obsession with bringing about destruction. The opponent, flipping through the pages of the book, smirks and asks if he reveals, will Makoto forgive him? Makoto is enraged by the mockery. Without hesitation, he swings his sword with all his might, nearly severing the opponent's shoulder. Makoto is confident that he can win this battle, as his opponent appears to be out of mana, and his body seems to be reaching its limit. Makoto channels the red dragon form, convinced that it will secure his victory. On the other hand, the guy, with his shoulder nearly severed, is still standing, declaring that this is Makoto's end. With that, he takes out a potion and drinks it, unleashing a flashy burst of light. The light blinds Makoto, and suddenly, within that brilliance, a powerful fist strikes Makoto's face, sending him crashing to the ground. As the dust settles, Makoto is in disbelief, seeing that all the damage he inflicted on the guy has been healed, and his opponent is back to full strength. The guy claims that the potion he used is an artifact, which allowed him to heal completely. With one arm, Makoto uses his scarlet light blade again, sending a sword wave toward the guy. However, the guy disperses it with his darkness orbs and counters with a barrage of attacks. Makoto is left in shock, as the artifact the guy used is supposed to be controlled by countries due to how overpowered it is, and no ordinary organization should be able to possess one. The guy kicks Makoto in his gut wound, sending him to the ground, where he takes his final breaths. Seeing Makoto beaten, the guy lets out a sigh of relief, believing he has finally defeated him. Meanwhile, Makoto, remembering his childhood and his comrades, tries to reach for his sword. He also recalls Kannagi's words about treating his brother like his cat, which brings a smile to his bloodied face. With renewed determination, he picks up his sword, but as he is about to swing it, a darkness beam hits him, completely severing the hand holding the sword. The guy, with a confident tone, bids Makoto his final goodbye. However, just as he is about to deliver the finishing blow, someone arrives, parting the crystal behind him. Is Kannagi, backed up by all the founders, ready to get their revenge on the guy who made their disciple cry. Makoto notices Kannagi's presence, and is initially worried, but soon realizes that it's not just Kannagi. Something else is emanating from him. The guy also notices the abnormality and the aura radiating from Kannagi. The boy in front of him no longer appears as a vulnerable target, but as an existence that will fiercely defend himself. Growing worried, the guy warns Kannagi not to move, threatening to kill Makoto if he does. However, as he speaks, his arm is severed from his body in a flash. The guy is shocked, unable to comprehend how it happened so quickly. Meanwhile, Kannagi simply swings his sword from a distance, the force of the strike even dulling his blade. The founders notice this, surprised that the sword dulled after just one strike. The alchemist founder steps in, transmuting multiple weapons for Kannagi to use in the fight. With pure vengeance in his eyes, Kannagi orders every founder to unleash hell on the guy. Meanwhile, the guy completely regenerates his arm, which shocks Hinoki. The mage founder explains it as reversal, a skill she didn't expect a modern awakener to possess. She speculates that the artifact he used continuously heals his wounds until its effect wears off. As she speaks, Kannagi launches an arrow that strikes the guy directly in the head. The guy didn't see it coming, but he regenerates the wound instantly. Seeing this, one of the founders asks the mage how they can kill the guy. She reveals that they must kill him repeatedly until he eventually dies. The guy uses his darkness spell as Kannagi loads another arrow. When Kannagi releases the arrow, the darkness spell tries to intercept it, but the arrow pierces through, striking the guy in the chest and head. The archer founder mocks the guy, asking if he truly believed he could stop his arrows. The guy regenerates his wounds and counters with a darkness orb's attack. Kannagi, using the founder's evasive powers, dodges the attack and flashes toward the guy, kicking him in the face. He then grabs the guy's hand and delivers a palm strike to his face. One of the founders notices that the guy can't use his annihilation beam attack if his vision is blocked by his own orbs, which works in their favor. Dodging the attack becomes easier because of this. Kannagi delivers a powerful blow to the guy's gut, sending him crashing to the ground. The founders wonder how many times they'll have to watch the same guy die and regenerate. Meanwhile, Kannagi walks over to Makoto, who, in his beaten state, asks if he is truly Kannagi. Kannagi denies it, explaining that the founders are using his body as heroic spirits. Using Valentine's healing power preservation, Kannagi begins healing Makoto's arms. As he heals, Kannagi reveals that they are in a hurry and must act quickly. Seeing Kannagi leave, Makoto understands that it's the founders who are in control. A short distance away, the guy gets back up, shocked that his spells are being dodged and countered so effortlessly. Without giving him time to think, Kannagi attacks him with a spear, piercing straight through his heart. The guy is relentlessly attacked, dying repeatedly without a moment to recover. One of the founders asks the mage if keeping the spear in the guy's heart will prevent him from regenerating. However, the spear passes through his body, and he begins to regenerate again. As the guy starts to recover, Kannagi delivers a powerful kick from above, crashing him back to the ground. Kannagi wonders which body parts regenerate first if they completely destroy his body. The guy begins regenerating from his hand, but by the time his full body is restored, he is gasping and exhausted. He is being obliterated, but refuses to let a boy stop him. Deciding to kill Makoto and escape, he rushes toward him, only to find Kannagi already sitting there, guarding Makoto. With a maniacal smile, Kannagi reveals that he is too late. Hinoki then takes control of Kannagi's body, and using his sword style completely cuts the guy's body into pieces. Even though the guy is obliterated, he doesn't fear death, as he believes he is fulfilling a prophecy. However, his resolve begins to waver in the face of something as terrifying as Kannagi. As the guy regenerates again, he tries to remind himself of his mission to fulfill the prophecy, refusing to let fear overcome him. He reaches for another artifact in his bag, but before he can use it, Kannagi cuts off his arm. The artifact scatters the ground, creating a powerful golden cage around Kannagi called the Sand Cage of Time. The regeneration effect on the guy ends, and he is unable to regenerate his arm. Relieved, the guy believes he has barely made it. The founders, seeing the cage, grow concerned, wondering what to do next since the guy's regeneration is nearly over. The guy, standing outside the cage, claims that even his darkness can't destroy the cage, so Kannagi can't kill him from within. With a nervous expression, he declares that he is going to leave, but before he can finish his sentence, Hinoki yells at him to watch closely. Suddenly, the guy feels a strong aura behind him, and turns to see Makoto standing on his own 2 feet, still regenerating. How is Makoto that much of a Chad and overpowered? Well, it all goes back to his childhood when he trained with the best, Midori. Even Midori lost to Makoto in a sword fight, which led him to suggest that Makoto find a better master to continue his training. Following the advice of the world's strongest awakener, Makoto searched for masters to become a disciple of those at the highest level. However, he surpassed every master he encountered, whether they taught him swordsmanship, magic, or agility. Every master gave up on him in less than a month. One of the masters recommended him to the strongest swordsman they knew at the time, Hinoki Ichika, the little sister of Hinoki. Ichika became Makoto's final master, and he trained under her for about 3 years. One day, while training with Ichika, Makoto asked about a sword technique mentioned in a book called Indomitable. Even Ichika couldn't figure out how the technique worked, claiming that it was a skill only Hinoki, the founder, could use. Makoto found it fascinating, as he had read about it in the book. However, Ichika soon realized she had nothing left to teach Makoto, as he had already mastered Hinoki's one-handed sword style. Makoto wanted to grow even stronger, but Ichika didn't know how he could progress further. She compared him to an unblooming bud, stating that even with all his training, blooming in this lifetime would be difficult for him. She hoped that one day, a stronger swordsman would appear before him. In the present, Makoto realizes that this moment is happening right before his eyes. He notices Kannagi using sword techniques he didn't even know existed. According to Ichika, such an opportunity might come only once in a lifetime, and he shouldn't miss it. Grateful for the chance, Makoto thanks Ichika in his heart and begins touching his severed arms together. Seeing this, all the founders are confused about what he's trying to do. Kannagi is also worried about his captain, who is outside the cage with the enemy. Makoto begins emitting the same aura as Kannagi. Meanwhile, inside the training ground of the anti-prophecy faction, Midori, who is training with Suu, senses a powerful aura. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the area, and as the dust settles, they are shocked to see a massive hole in the wall, and Midori is gone. Back on the battlefield, the guy is confused, seeing Makoto able to perform such a feat despite his condition. He is certain that he will be cut down. Witnessing this, Hinoki explains to Kannagi that people are like flowers, blooming at their true potential when they reach their peak, whether physically, spiritually, or through mastering an ultimate technique. For Makoto, this is the moment of his true potential. Hinoki, standing behind Kannagi, advises him to engrave what he sees deep in his mind. Kannagi realizes what Hinoki is trying to say. Like a blooming flower, Makoto lifts his arms as if holding a sword, and, with unwavering determination, manages to use Hinoki's one-handed sword style's lost technique, Indomitable, the very technique he read about in the book. Even though the guy's darkness defenses are flawlessly activated, his body is cut in half without Makoto even wielding a physical sword. The guy wonders if this is the time and place where he will meet his end. As his body falls apart, Hinoki praises Makoto for materializing a sword that existed only in his mind. Meanwhile, Makoto, though standing in a state of confusion, feels that he has finally become the swordsman he always aspired to be. He considers it a blessing to have spent time with his family, friends, comrades, and subordinates. Every experience he's had has made him stronger. Even if this is his end, he remembers his little brother and his cat, apologizing to them in his heart. As he is about to lose consciousness, he sees Kannagi walking toward him, lending a hand with a smile. Seeing this, Makoto realizes that this death might not be the end, as he can still leave his legacy to the next generation through Kannagi. Grabbing Kannagi's hand, he thanks him and collapses to the ground. As the cage vanishes after the guy's defeat, Kannagi rushes toward his captain, feeling a deep connection through the crest of nothingness. All the other comrades lie lifeless on the ground, but as Makoto is about to join them, Midori comes flying in. He grabs Makoto just in time as he falls. Makoto dies in Midori's arms at the age of 23, after the battle with the Darkness user, pay F for respect in the chat. Holding Makoto's body, Midori is in despair, unable to believe what has happened. He remembers a time when he asked Makoto why he became the captain of the squad while they were training. According to Midori, in the anti-prophecy unit, Makoto was the second strongest after him, and if he were to go all out, no one would be able to match him. Midori had asked Makoto if, with all that strength, he thought it was better to fight alone. This question surprised Makoto, and he asked Midori if he thought he wasn't suited for teamwork. However, the team was more important to Makoto than anything else. He wasn't sure how to express this to Midori, but suddenly his comrades called him through the security camera. In the group, Jakaru was excited because one of their comrades, Kuzushiro, had just passed the level 2 assignment he had been working on. Kuzushiro was also happy, saying he wanted to tell the captain first. Jakaru, thrilled about the news, suggested they all go out for lunch. Seeing their camaraderie, Midori was taken aback. As Midori listened, Makoto revealed that he was fond of his comrades, and that even if he fell wounded in battle, he would be happy knowing he had his comrades by his side. Coming back to the present, Midori holds his friend's body and tells him that his wish of fighting for his comrades has been fulfilled. Even though most of his comrades have fallen, 2 of them are still alive. With tears in his eyes, Midori closes Makoto's eyes, stating that as a leader, Makoto has fulfilled his duties. It's something Midori knows he couldn't have done, but Makoto did it, and with honor. On the other hand, Kannagi is on the ground while all the founders stand behind him. Darkness begins to cloud his consciousness, and the mage explains that it's likely due to Kannagi taking all the blame for the station's destruction and his perceived weakness. All of the founders have also experienced the loss of their comrades, friends, and families. Their hearts were broken as they watched their comrades depart, and in most cases, like Hinoki, they couldn't move on from their wounded hearts. Hinoki walks up to Kannagi, who is kneeling in despair. He calls out to him, but in a hopeless tone, Kannagi reveals that he doesn't want to fight anymore. His heart feels torn apart, and he believes that if he had let the founders fight from the beginning, no one would have died. He now understands that in his attempt to become strong for others, he ended up becoming merely a vessel for the founders. Hinoki, hearing Kannagi's words, tries to say something, but Kannagi is too overwhelmed by his thoughts. He feels the hand he shook with Makoto in his consciousness burning like fire. Kannagi knows that Makoto entrusted him to carry forward his legacy. This brings tears to the founder's eyes, but what Kannagi says next shocks them. He declares that he now not only wants to surpass the founders, but to surpass them with every moment he has. Suddenly, a beam of bright light hits Kannagi as he declares his determination. From now on, he will not let anyone else die. Bro is now 1,000 levels mentally strong. 1 month later in Nagano Prefecture at Maitake Mountain, Suwu is practicing hand-to-hand combat with Kannagi. He sends blow after blow toward Kannagi, who dodges them all. Kannagi then counters with a penetration attack which Suwu blocks, but the attack creates a shockwave behind him. Kannagi is shocked that Suwu redirected the force of his penetration spell so effortlessly. As he processes this, Suwu counters, but Kannagi is ready and uses Aikido to swing Suwu around. Suwu tries to kick midair, but Kannagi blocks it and counters with a powerful kick of his own. Just as he's about to land the hit, a loud shout stops them both. Sachika, how did it all happen? Well, the annihilation of the squad has left a deep scar in the anti-prophecy unit. During the funeral of the fallen, everyone was in grief. But Suwu stood frozen in front of his brother's picture the entire time. Later, as Kannagi was heading to his room, he saw Suwu coming out of Makoto's room, holding some books and a cat. Kannagi recognized the cat as Oribe, the one Makoto often talked about. Suwu was shocked that Kannagi knew about his brother's cat, something even he hadn't been aware of. Before entering his brother's room, Suwu didn't know about the cute cat, the books, the clothes, the food, or even the thoughts his brother had. He only discovered these things when he went through Makoto's belongings. Kannagi noticed that Suwu had a bunch of diaries with him which he planned to take. These diaries were left by Makoto so that his brother could read them in case he lost his life. All of Makoto's daily training and missions were recorded inside. However, Suwu noticed something else. Every sentence in the diaries ended with Makoto worrying about Suwu. He wrote about how Suwu was doing, how the weather was cold, and even about Suwu's achievements and life events. Reading this alone in his room, Suwu broke down in tears, curling up on the floor as he realized that everything his brother wrote was about him. Comment a tear emoji if you're crying too. As Suwu revealed all this to Kannagi, Kannagi also shared that Makoto always talked to him about Suwu and his cat, Oribe. Hearing this, Suwu teared up, declaring that from now on, he wants to get stronger so his brother won't have to worry about him from heaven anymore. With that, they both went to Hinoki Ichika to train. At first, she was cautious of them, until they revealed that Suwu was Makoto's brother, and that Makoto had fallen in battle. This shocked Ichika, but she kept her composure. In sync, both Suwu and Kannagi requested her to train them to become stronger. Coming back to the present, Ichika is amazed at how much they've both improved, especially Suwu, who has progressed remarkably. Kannagi asks about his own progress, to which Ichika responds with an annoyed sigh, claiming she has nothing left to teach Kannagi since he already knows everything. She jokes that it should be her asking him to teach her instead. She then kicks a stick toward both of them and, with a manic grin, declares that she is the sword, challenging them to come at her. With that, they both charge at her, Suwu striking from the front while Kannagi attacks from above. As they fight, Kannagi is determined to get stronger and is confident that he will become the strongest awakener in the world. Meanwhile, in England, London, a man wearing a hat and coat walks down the night streets alone. As he turns a corner, someone recognizes him as one of the 12 apostles of the apocalypse, Katra. Katra also recognizes the person approaching him. It's Midori. Midori straight up demands that Katra reveal the location of his base and comrades, warning him that if he says anything else, he will die. Hearing this, Katra instantly summons his weapon, a strange heart-shaped pike, and challenges Midori to come at him. Suddenly, a burst of blood sprays from the alleyway, followed by Midori walking out unscathed. Outside, other members of the anti-prophecy group are waiting. Midori hands them the book, turns and leaves, stating that 7 people are left. They now have 5 books, meaning they've killed 5 members of the 12 apostles of the apocalypse, and Midori is now heading to the next target. Within the hunt of everlasting secrets, the anti-prophecy's top secret facility, a book collected by Midori is presented to an elderly woman. She is introduced as Ao, the superintendent of the anti-prophecy unit. The man delivering the book confirms it is indeed from Midori, revealing that these are the prophecy books of the 12 apostles of the apocalypse. This man is Gen, the assistant to the superintendent. Another assistant, a lady named Shiki, is also present. She suggests that the books might be parts of a single, larger book that has been dismembered. Ao opens the book and remarks that eliminating the apostles and retrieving the books aren't the main problems. The real issue is that Midori is acting on his own, and it seems like Makoto's death has left a deep scar on him. Shiki, hearing this, wonders what they should do. Ao, with a smile, orders them to leave Midori to her, assuring them that once he returns, she will prepare tea for him. Gen and Shiki then propose that since Makoto's squad has been eliminated, leaving a gap in the anti-prophecy unit, they are willing to form a new squad under their leadership. Hearing this, Ao falls into deep thought. Meanwhile, somewhere around Tokyo, a rank 2 prophecy, the rebellion, is unfolding. The boss of this prophecy is the God of Down. Members of the anti-prophecy unit are fighting the troops of the prophecy, but are struggling to defeat even a few of them. In their nervousness, they call out for their captain, Hibiki. Hibiki, the captain of the Hibiki Setsuna squad, steps forward. To her, the troops are boring and easy to defeat. She then looks back at Akane, who has joined her squad, and asks if she can handle it. Akane uses her Trismegistus spell, creating a massive blob of mercury. She warns everyone to stand back as she flows the mercury onto the ground toward the troops. Once every troop has their feet submerged in the mercury, Akane uses her gasification spell, converting the mercury into gas. The troops begin coughing and suffocating. Akane then follows up by converting the gas back into liquid mercury, which is now inside the troops' bodies. She uses crimson heat to boil the mercury within them. And finally, she solidifies the mercury, instantly killing all the troops by forming spikes inside their bodies. The entire squad is shocked, as Akane has just wiped out all the troops in a matter of seconds. Akane snaps her fingers and turns toward the group, announcing that she's finished. Hibiki walks toward her, clapping, and praises Akane for using all 3 states of matter and executing 4 attacks in a single skill. She holds Akane's chin and remarks that it's a shame Akane is only a temporary member of their group. Hibiki proposes that once Akane finishes her training, she should join their squad permanently. Akane, excited, replies that she'll think about it. The other squad members are also impressed by Akane, wondering if she'll really join their squad given how cute and strong she is. However, to their surprise, Hibiki wants Akane to join because she wants their battles to be even easier. As soon as Akane leaves, she calls Kannagi, informing him that she has completed Lesson 7 about controlling the 3 states of alchemy, and asks him to send her the next lesson. Kannagi, who is trying to keep his lunch safe from the cat, agrees. The founder alchemist, hearing this, is amazed that Akane has finally mastered level 7. Kannagi requests the founder to prepare 3 more lessons for Akane, which he gladly agrees to. Kannagi informs Akane, and she thanks him. She also mentions that Hinata has reached Lesson 8. In Saitama Prefecture, Takarazawa City, a rank 2 prophecy, Earth-eating beast with the boss Sphinx has occurred. Hinata, sent to eliminate the boss, uses his lightning kick and completely destroys the boss with a single strike. With this, he completes his level 8 lesson on the lightning kick. The captain of the Todoroki squad praises Hinata and proposes that he join their squad. Hinata, like Akane, wants to think about which squad he should join. He asks Akane for advice, and she, excited to compete with him, claims that no matter which squad he chooses, she'll win against them. Kannagi, who is on a joint call with them, is happy that they're both getting stronger, and declares that he should get up and start training too. As Kannagi is talking, Sue gets annoyed that Oribe the cat always clings to Kannagi and not him. He yaps about it. And as he tries to pull the cat away from Kannagi, Akane asks if they've heard the rumor about a new squad forming. Kannagi hasn't heard about it, so she explains that a new squad is being formed to fill the gap left by Makoto's squad. The captain of this new squad will be selected from the member with the highest achievements. Kannagi takes the news lightly, but Akane has something else on her mind. She reveals that the real question isn't who will become the captain, it's whether Kannagi wants to form his own squad. At first, Kannagi brushes it off as a joke, but then he freezes, realizing the weight of what she's saying. Kannagi asks Akane why she said that. She reveals that there is a certain desire within the anti-prophecy, as there exists a force in the world capable of eliminating all prophecies. Kannagi is taken aback by this revelation, and Akane adds that she too desires such a force. She explains that everyone in the squad is searching for a strong-willed leader, and she believes Kannagi has the qualities to be a capable squad captain. Just then, Akane's squad captain calls for her, prompting her to excuse herself from Kannagi and say goodbye. This conversation leaves Kannagi deep in thought about the possibility of becoming a squad captain. Meanwhile, Ichika asks Suu about Kannagi, to which he reveals the discussion about him potentially becoming a captain. Ichika also believes that if Kannagi wants to, he could easily take on the role, and Suu agrees with her. Lost in thought, Kannagi seeks answers from the founders, who appear just as uncertain about what to advise him. Since they had all devoted their lives to following a master, they lack experience and leadership. The mage founder, realizing this, calls them useless teachers for being unable to guide Kannagi in this situation. Hinoki then turns to the founder of military strategy, Ryan, and asks for his opinion. Ryan, however, refuses to intervene, stating that it is not the right time, as there is already someone qualified to guide Kannagi. Before Kannagi can process this, his thoughts are abruptly interrupted by a wooden spear striking the ground inches away from him. Looking up, he sees Ichika approaching, urging him not to waste his time overthinking, and instead, continue his training. With a maniacal grin, she challenges him to use his flash step against her. Kannagi agrees, leaping down from the rock and using flash step in combination with ripple step to land softly. Ichika watches in amazement, wondering about Kannagi's true identity. To her, the level of skill he has attained in just 6 months is impossible for a normal awakener. Recalling Hinoki's rigorous training sessions where he failed countless times while learning flash step, Kannagi lets out a laugh. However, before he can dwell on the memory, he senses an aura of energy surging toward him. Noticing Ichika charging at him with her wooden staff infused with energy, he swiftly dodges. The staff strikes the rock behind him, splitting it cleanly in half. Suu, witnessing this, is stunned. Ichika, undeterred, reminds Kannagi that she doesn't care whether he is focused or not, she will force him to be. Kannagi, now slightly nervous but fully attentive, holds his stance. Inside him, Hinoki realizes that Ryan was referring to Ichika as the qualified person to guide Kannagi. The mage founder also comes to understand that Ichika is remarkably strong for a modern awakener, as expected from Hinoki's descendant. However, Hinoki denies having children, claiming it might be his brother instead. He acknowledges Ichika's strength, noting that since she trained someone as powerful as Makoto, she might be a living successor. However, as he says this, he notices her using a technique called Skyfall, something he has never seen before. This technique launches an electric zap toward Kannagi, who barely evades it. Realizing the sheer strength behind the attack, Kannagi understands that Ichika is going all out against him. Ichika charges forward and follows up with her Purgatory Sword technique, unleashing a powerful strike at him. Meanwhile, Hinoki watches in excitement, realizing that Ichika has developed a new technique by refining all the knowledge passed down to her. Outside, as Kannagi dodges the attack, Ichika is impressed. It's a technique he has never encountered before, yet he still managed to evade it. She praises Kannagi's one-handed sword style, noting that it closely resembles the techniques of the founder. This comment shocks Kannagi, and before he can respond, Ichika adds that he might be worrying about whether he could ever become as strong as Makoto. Kannagi is stunned, as this is exactly what has been weighing on his mind. Suu, overhearing this, is also taken aback. Kannagi's grip on his sword tightens as he recalls witnessing Makoto's strength firsthand, how he was an extraordinary squad captain. This is the very reason Kannagi keeps questioning whether he can ever reach Makoto's level. To his surprise, Ichika tells him that he doesn't have to be like Makoto. She suddenly yells at him to pay attention, channeling her energy as she executes her sword technique, Tengu dance, creating a powerful water tornado. She explains that this technique was developed by past masters who built upon the founder's techniques. While these techniques may never match the founder's power due to the immense difference in strength, the masters never stop trying, gradually getting closer over time. Hearing this, Kannagi finally understands what she means. Ichika then reveals that she doesn't know exactly how great a Captain Makoto was, but from what she knew of him, he must have been an incredible leader. She adds that it won't be the same for Kannagi in the beginning, but if he has skills, he definitely has the potential to reach that level. Pointing her wooden stick at him, she advises Kannagi not to try to become like Makoto, but instead to focus on the path entrusted to him. Hearing this, Kannagi remembers when Makoto shook his hand. Thinking back on that moment, he realizes he must look toward the future instead of dwelling on comparisons. A smile appears on Ichika's face as she declares that, for the sake of that future, she will train him herself. With that, they both engage in intense training, pushing each other to their limits. 2 weeks later, at the anti-prophecy headquarters, Hibiki and Todoroki, 2 squad captains, review the list of newly recommended squad candidates. The list, submitted by the superintendent themselves, includes Kannagi and Ichika. Some members find this selection odd. Meanwhile, outside the HQ building, a dark figure speaks on a cell phone, informing someone that they have successfully infiltrated the facility, and that the new squad captain exam will take place in 3 days. This figure carries the Book of Doom, and boldly declares that they will soon become the new squad leader of the anti-prophecy. This figure is none other than Eva, a member of the 12 Apostles of Apocalypse. Eva possesses a skill called Heavenly Demon, which allows her to replace the existence of anyone she kills. Her goal is to become the captain of the newly formed squad of the anti-prophecy, and destroy the organization from the inside. As Midori continues his killing spree against the 12 apostles, more than half of them have already fallen. Since they cannot defeat Midori Hiden, they have decided to sabotage the anti-prophecy from within. Their motto is that they will do anything to fulfill the prophecy. 3 days later, at the grand training field of the anti-prophecy, the selection examination for the captain of the new squad is underway. As all participants gather, the instructor announces that there will be 4 tests, with only 4 people advancing to the final stage. The exam follows a point system. First place in each test earns 3 points, second place earns 2, and third place earns 1. In the end, the candidate with the highest score will be elected as the captain of the newly formed squad. The superintendent watches as the instructor urges all participants to give their best effort. In unison, they yell, "Yes." Among them, Kannagi feels the weight of everyone's gaze. There are 8 candidates. Koki from the Yagurama squad, Akihina from the Yorizuya squad, Sanobe from the Yashima squad, Hisejai from the Kakabi squad, Sakazaki from the Tsarazaki squad, Shikami from the Todoroki squad, and Jiru from the Hibiki squad. However, the real danger lies in the fact that one of them is actually Eva, one of the 12 apostles, an imposter hidden in plain sight. And then there is the special recommendation, Kannagi. Unlike the others, Kannagi stands alone, as his squad captain Ichika is nowhere to be seen, oversleeping as usual. However, she sends him a message warning that if he doesn't win, she will personally make him regret it. Determined to avoid elimination before Ichika arrives, Kannagi steels himself for the competition. Meanwhile, Ichika rushes toward the training ground, riding on Sue's back. She yells at him to go faster, knowing that if they don't hurry, they might miss the crucial moments. She has complete faith that Kannagi will win, and refuses to miss his victory. Back at the training field, the first test begins, which is mana measurement. To everyone's shock, Kannagi releases an immense amount of energy, shattering the measurement device and securing first place. Akihina from the Yorizuya squad, who ranks 5th in the test, is stunned by Kannagi's overwhelming power. Sakazaki takes 3rd place, while Sanobu secures 2nd, both realizing that Kannagi is an anomaly. Sakazaki remarks that such irregularities occasionally occur when a genius in either physical strength or mana appears in the exam. He speculates that Kannagi is a mana prodigy, much like another participant, Shikami, who ranks 7th. On the points table, Kannagi takes the lead with 3 points. As the instructor announces the second test, hand-to-hand combat, the real battle begins. Each participant must face an opponent, and a victory will earn them 2 points. As the instructor announces the first participant, Shikami voluntarily raises his hand, requesting to face Kannagi. Shikami is the strongest regular member in hand-to-hand combat, and is also considered an irregular. When he was just 2 years old, he was caught in the emergence of monsters from another dimension. However, even as a baby in a cart, he single-handedly killed all the monsters, shocking his own mother. He protected her and became a legend. In the audience, Hibiki accuses Todoroki of cheating by sending Shikami into the hand-to-hand combat test. Todoroki argues that there is nothing wrong with choosing his strongest member, as Shikami is blessed with both magical talent and immense physical strength. He boasts that he has been training Shikami since he joined his squad, and to this day, no one has ever beaten him in hand-to-hand combat. Hearing this, Hibiki wonders if the match will end instantly, considering Shikami's combat abilities are practically unbeatable. As the fight begins, Shikami approaches Kannagi and asks if he has really been giving lessons to Hinata. Remembering the founders, Kannagi replies that he is merely a messenger. Shikami doesn't understand what he means, but continues, claiming that someone out there is advising and teaching Hinata, who is already a super genius. He adds that even without Kannagi's guidance, Hinata will surpass his current level on his own. Instead of arguing, Kannagi simply agrees with him, which only annoys Shikami further. Enraged, Shikami activates Violent Bite, transforming into a monstrous form. In an instant, with blinding speed, he lunges at Kannagi. Kannagi ducks just in time, but Shikami follows up with a powerful claw attack. Watching this, Todoroki is thrilled to see his fighter going all out. As Shikami swings with all his might, Kannagi sidesteps the attack. Seizing the moment, Kannagi shifts into Kudo's stance, grips Shikami's wrist, and with tremendous force, slams him into the ground. The impact erupts in a massive shockwave, sending rocks flying across the field and startling everyone. As the debris settles, both Kannagi and Shikami are airborne. The other participants are in awe. Despite Kannagi merely redirecting Shikami's attack, the sheer power of it was enough to devastate the entire battlefield. Even Kannagi himself is impressed by Shikami's strength, though Shikami assumes he is being sarcastic. Despite the powerful blow, Shikami lands safely on the ground, shocking everyone that he managed to do so despite the destroyed terrain. Akihina, analyzing the situation on his laptop, remarks that this outcome was inevitable. Shikami's physical boost is irregular, and the sturdiness of his body far surpasses that of a normal awakener. Regaining his composure, Shikami charges at Kannagi once again. Kannagi realizes that simply countering Shikami's attacks won't be enough to win. He needs to try something different. Activating his founder power, he delivers a light kick at the charging Shikami. He then multiplies the attack using the penetration technique, Luminance Kick, striking Shikami multiple times while he is still airborne. Everyone watches in shock as Shikami crashes to the ground, defeated. The instructor quickly intervenes, stopping the match before it escalates further, and declares Kannagi the winner, awarding him 2 additional points. The other squad members are amazed this guy just physically overwhelmed Shikami, despite Akihina's earlier claim that he was an irregular. Akihina, now furiously typing on his laptop, hadn't expected Kannagi to be so exceptional in hand-to-hand combat. He initially assumed Kannagi would be eliminated naturally if left alone, but now it's clear that Kannagi is becoming an obstacle in his plans. As Shikami regains consciousness and opens his eyes, he is shocked to see Kannagi casting some kind of spell on him while he lies on the ground. Kannagi reassures him that he is healing his wounds, which only astonishes Shikami further. An irregular in both mana and physical prowess, now capable of healing too. It seems almost unbelievable. Shikami, still processing what's happening, asks Kannagi if there's anything he can't do. This question makes Kannagi recall the time he desperately tried to bring back his fallen Makoto squad members, but failed. After healing Shikami for a while, Kannagi tells him he should be able to stand now. As they speak, a loud bang suddenly erupts nearby. Kannagi looks over and reveals that it marks the final match of the hand-to-hand combat exam. Shikami, now alarmed, wonders how long he's been unconscious. Realizing it must have been quite some time, Kannagi calmly tells him it has only been 5 minutes. According to Kannagi, after their fight, the other battles started simultaneously. 2 of the pairs finished instantly, but Akihina and Hizaki are still fighting even after 5 minutes. Both remain determined, exchanging a relentless barrage of blows with full force. As Hizaki charges at Akihina, she pushes him back with a powerful attack, mocking him for lacking any special abilities. She taunts that without unique skills or traits, he is unfit to be a captain. Akihina steadies himself and counters her remark, stating that he is not the type who seeks to stand out. According to him, even if an ordinary person were to take on the captain's role, death would be the only outcome for them. He believes that a captain must have the ability to adapt to any situation in order to increase the survival chances of every squad member, even by just 1%. Akihina declares that this is his goal, ensuring that he does not suffer the same fate as the Makoto squad. This statement strikes a chord with Kannagi, as Akihina is speaking about his fallen comrades in such a manner. Shikami also takes offense and warns Akihina to watch his words. Back in the fight, Hizaki executes her disciplined chains word technique, generating an energy whirlwind as she charges straight at Akihina. Even though Akihina blocks the attack, the sheer force sends him crashing to the ground. Hizaki quickly follows up with another strike, but just as she is about to land the hit, Akihina unexpectedly surrenders. The instructor immediately stops the match, declaring Hizaki the winner, leaving her in shock. Another squad member quickly restrains her as she fumes with rage, furious that Akihina gave up so easily instead of putting up a real fight. Akihina, on the other hand, claims that he expected the battle to last longer, so he chose to preserve his energy for the upcoming tests. As he walks away, he knows that he could have defeated Hizaki if he had tried, but he does not want to reveal his full strength just yet, especially with Kannagi closely observing the fight. The second stage of the exam, hand-to-hand combat, concludes with Kannagi leading the scoreboard with 5 points, followed by Tsunobu with 3. The instructor announces a 30-minute break before the start of the third examination. He also reveals that in the next round, the 4 participants with the lowest scores will be eliminated. As the lunch break begins, Kannagi wonders about Ichika and Tsu, who should have been there but are still missing. Meanwhile, outside the anti-prophecy headquarters building, Tsu finally arrives, carrying Ichika. Exhausted from the effort, he is confused when she starts heading toward the courtyard instead of the training ground. When he questions her, Ichika reveals that she can smell traces of an aura, one that suggests someone has recently died there. According to her, it appears to be the residue of an Awakener who was killed by an overwhelmingly powerful monster. Hearing this, Tsu is stunned. If an Awakener was truly killed here, it means someone may have infiltrated the anti-prophecy headquarters, despite this place being a well-kept secret. Ichika argues that the 12 apostles are strong enough to have figured out how to find this location, shocking Tsu even further. When he asks about their possible motive, she ignores the question and instead suggests they head to the training venue. In her mind, however, she knows that whoever died was likely at the level of a squad captain. But with no official reports of such an incident, the situation is becoming more intriguing. Now, not only Midori but also Ichika, Tsu, and most notably Kannagi are all working toward the same goal, avenging Captain Makoto's death. During the lunch break, as everyone patches up their wounds, eats their meals, and casually converses, Akihina sits alone, focused on his laptop. Meanwhile, Kannagi, who is sitting with Shikami, becomes excited when he notices his comrades, Ichika and Tsu, arriving. The atmosphere shifts as others grow nervous upon recognizing Ichika, one of the 5 elite members of the Anti-Prophecy Special Task Force, alongside Midori. Tsu, observing the gathered captains, feels uneasy. Ichika had claimed that a captain had been killed, yet all 7 captains are present on the training ground. Hearing this, Ichika smirks and calls Kannagi over to share something important. She tells him everything, shocking him with the revelation that one of the captains might actually be a member of the 12 Apostles in disguise. According to Ichika, the probability is high based on the aura residue she sensed in the courtyard. The individual who died was undoubtedly at a captain's level, yet all captains are accounted for, making the situation highly suspicious. Logically, it should be impossible, but if someone is disguising themselves as the victim, then there is an imposter among them. Realizing the potential danger, Kannagi grows tense, and Tsu agrees. The person who just killed a captain-level individual is standing among them. Tsu fears that if they don't solve this problem soon, there may be more victims. If they leave it as it is, there's a possibility that a prophecy at the level where human extinction is certain. Ichika, with an evil grin, suggests a far more ruthless approach, killing everyone there to eliminate the threat entirely. Tsu and Kannagi immediately oppose the idea, arguing that they only need to find and eliminate the one member of the 12 Apostles lurking among them. Ichika, now excited, points out that if they are dealing with the 12 Apostles, this might be their chance to avenge Makoto. After all, they are the ones responsible for his death. She asks Kannagi if he feels the same, and as he recalls what happened to Makoto and their squad, he confirms. Tsu, clenching his fists, also remembers everything that happened to his brother. Kannagi then turns to Aza, the founder of the detectives, for his opinion. Aza suggests that he should first examine the crime scene, but given that they are in the middle of an examination, he knows that isn't possible. Kannagi considers hurrying there since there's still some time left before the lunch break ends. However, Aza warns that this might alert the culprit if the apostle they are dealing with is as strong as the one they faced at the snowy mountain. He could easily wipe out everyone here if he wished. They need to be prepared if that happens. Taking this into account, Kannagi decides to head to the training ground after today's test, but asks if there's a possibility that even the founders wouldn't be able to detect any aura residue at the crime scene. Hinoki then reveals that they have been near a volcano for the past month, where he trained and mastered his one-handed sword technique. He explains that the volcano might be interfering with the flow of their chi, potentially making it difficult to any residual energy. Mage also reveals that if the aura can only be sensed at close range, it is almost certainly from a 12 Apostles class enemy. Aza, annoyed that they are taking over his detective work, is about to protest, but Hinoki shuts him down, suggesting they focus on catching the culprit so he can kill him. Returning to the interrogation, Aza tells Kannagi to ask Ichika a question. Kannagi then asks if there is a possibility that the apostle infiltrated as a candidate rather than as a captain. This catches Ichika off guard, but after a moment she confirms that it's possible if they are talking about the captain candidates. However, she insists they cannot rule out suspicion on the squad captains either. Kannagi understands but quickly forms an idea that he plans to use in the next test, assuming it involves combat abilities. However, just a few minutes later, the instructor announces the start of the third stage of the examination, revealing that it is a written test, completely shocking Kannagi. The candidates are seated in private chambers where no phones are allowed, making it impossible for Kannagi to gather any information about the infiltrator. The test focuses on the rules of the anti-prophecy, something Kannagi doesn't understand at all. However, he refuses to give up, determined to push through. When the test ends, the instructor announces the results. Kannagi fails to earn any points while Akihina jumps to second place with 3 points. The last 4 candidates, including Shikami, are eliminated. Kannagi feels embarrassed about getting the lowest score in the writing exam, but as he stands there frustrated, Shikami walks up to him and encourages him, telling him that he did well. Both Kannagi and Shikami receive 0 scores in the writing test, but Shikami is especially frustrated about Akihina earning full marks. Despite this, he praises Kannagi for maintaining first place and assures him that he will be cheering for him in the second half of the exam. He wonders who will be selected as the new captain, and adds that after the captain is chosen, the superintendent will also evaluate whether the newly formed squad will function properly. Shikami explains that the minimum number of members in a squad is 7, meaning the captain must recruit at least 6 more members. He advises Kannagi to start considering which candidates he will recruit once he becomes a captain. Placing a hand on Kannagi's shoulder, Shikami offers himself as a squad member, emphasizing his strong physical abilities. Then with a grin, he walks away, wishing Kannagi the best for the rest of the exam. As Shikami leaves, Aza approaches Kannagi and tells him to visit the crime scene. However, something in Aza's confident tone makes Kannagi realize that he has already identified the culprit. Aza confirms this, but states that he still needs solid evidence to make an official deduction. He then declares that they will now go on the offensive against the 12 apostles. The mage explains everything that has happened so far and mentions that Detective Aza assists Kannagi with his deductions and methods. This annoys Hinoki as the mage speaks in a roundabout manner, but she does so intentionally to lighten the mood with her narration. They are at the crime scene where Aza takes over for Kannagi and begins examining the area. As expected, everything aligns with his suspicions. With the victim's identity confirmed, he now also knows who the culprit is. Hearing this, Hinoki realizes that their opponent is indeed one of the 12 apostles, which means he might have obtained the Book of Doom, the same one the last apostle possessed. The mage then asks what they should do next. Just as Kannagi is about to respond, he suddenly feels a surge of energy and is transported into a cloudy realm. There, he encounters an old lady who, when asked, simply claims to be a random granny passing by. She inquires about his investigation, and Kannagi reveals that a murder has been committed. The culprit has taken on someone else's form and appears to be highly skilled. Upon hearing this, the granny asks if they should find the culprit now. However, Kannagi explains that they already know who it is, not by mere guesswork, but with solid proof. Despite this, he admits that he cannot expose the truth just yet. The granny is confused, as she believes that revealing the culprit and eliminating them immediately would be the best course of action. However, Kannagi argues that while it may seem that way, there are actually 2 culprits instead of 1. He insists that it would be better to take them both down at once when they are in the same place. He decides to deal with it in the morning, but requests that the old lady, who is actually the superintendent, refrain from interfering and simply observe. She smiles, wishes him luck, and reiterates that she is just a passing granny who will not interfere. As she is about to leave, Kannagi reveals his name to her, prompting another smile from the old lady. Suddenly, a strong surge of energy rushes through him, and he regains control of his body. In a top-secret location, the assistant questions the superintendent, asking if it was wise to leave things as they are. The granny, however, assures her that she doesn't mind, as Kannagi seems close to the truth and appears to have a plan. She claims that she is merely interested in seeing what he will do next. She then orders the assistant to instruct the other officers to provide backup for Kannagi if anything happens. The assistant agrees, but admits that even after walking near the residual traces, she didn't find anything particularly interesting. Still, the superintendent places her trust in Kannagi's words. The assistant is puzzled as to why the superintendent has so much faith in him. In response, the granny reveals that it is because of the confidence and determination she saw in his eyes. The next day, as Kannagi walks through the woods, Shikami joins him, explaining the next test. This test will evaluate their performance based on how well they would function as a squad captain. Shikami already expects Akihina to rely on his strategic skills, but he expresses his support for Kannagi instead. Kannagi thanks him, but suddenly, out of nowhere, asks why Shikami deliberately dropped out of the examination. After a brief yet sinister pause, Shikami turns to him and claims that he changed his strategy midway. Instead of becoming a captain himself, he now prefers to operate in his own way under the command of a strong captain. Kannagi narrows his eyes in suspicion and accuses Shikami of doing it so he could eliminate all the promising members of the squad. Ichika is also present, hiding in the trees just in case. Hearing Kannagi's suspicion, Shikami openly admits that he has no problem killing someone if it is necessary for a replacement. He explains that during the third test, he struggled to write anything because his brain could only process and retrieve the information already stored in it, which is why he ended up with a score of 0. Calling himself a fool, he accepts that it would be better for him to simply eliminate Akihina's body instead. As they step into an open field, All the squad captains and members surround them. In the center, Todoroki is chained to the ground while Hibiki and another captain stand beside him. With her usual casual and cocky demeanor, Hibiki refers to Shikami as Mr. Apostle and asks him to introduce himself. Realizing his disguise has been exposed, Shikami deepens his voice and reveals his true identity. Eva, the ninth apostle, Eva then explains her ability, adding that she can also extract information directly from a host's brain. She claims that she killed Shikami because he possessed the strongest physique among the contenders. Hibiki smirks and asks if Eva's goal is to sabotage the anti-prophecy from the inside. Eva confirms this but admits that since she has failed, she now has no choice but to kill everyone present. However, before doing so, she wants to know who first discovered her true identity. Hibiki points toward Kannagi, who is standing right beside Eva. With an evil grin, Eva glares at him and remarks that she never expected him to have the audacity to stand so close to her. Turning to face him, she radiates immense energy and demands to know who the hell is he. But how did all of this happen? Right before Shikami's body was taken over by Eva, Todoroki had told him that he would recommend him as a candidate for the new squad captain. This news excited Shikami greatly, though Todoroki cautioned him that the information was still a secret and would only be officially announced the next morning. Getting even more excited, Shikami joked that despite it being a secret, they were practically yelling it out loud, which would definitely inform others. Todoroki then reassured him, stating that Shikami was one of the strongest individuals there in terms of physical power and would undoubtedly make a great captain. Seeing this level of confidence in him, Shikami agreed, feeling determined to do his best. However, just as he was fist-bumping Todoroki, something slashed him into pieces. In an instant, Shikami was cut down right in front of Todoroki, leaving him utterly shocked and unable to process what had just happened. Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the air, mocking Shikami's weakness and questioning if this was truly the standard for a squad captain candidate in the anti-prophecy unit. The figure then answered its own question, claiming that the squad had only grown strong thanks to artifacts and the one who had provided them. Stepping forward, the figure introduced herself as Eva, one of the 12 apostles, and declared that she was looking forward to their future. Walking up to Shikami's lifeless body, Eva activated her heavenly demon skill, taking complete control over it. As she is channeling her power, Todoroki, with his mighty punch Vajra, smashes her entire body into a splatter of blood. Tearing up in rage, Todoroki breathes heavily, but to his shock, he suddenly hears applause from behind him. The same Shikami he had just seen die is now clapping, praising Todoroki for managing to kill a 12 apostle with a single hit, just as expected from his master. Stunned, Todoroki turns around to see Shikami standing there, seemingly alive. However, before he can even react, his body is instantly sliced in half by Eva, who had taken on Shikami's form. With a wicked grin, Eva then activates the Necromance Dance artifact, resurrecting Todoroki as a corpse slave bound to her will. Now under Eva's control, Todoroki agrees to serve her, addressing her as Eva, but before he can say anything else, she slaps him so hard it nearly knocks him over. Correcting him, she demands that he call her Shikami, ensuring that no one grows suspicious of her disguise. Todoroki nods, complying, and the two share a dark, twisted laugh. Meanwhile, at the crime scene, Kannagi and Azure investigate. Using his unique skill, Theatrical Detective, Azure rewinds time to witness everything that transpired there. This powerful ability allows him to replay past events at a crime scene, giving him a first-hand view of what truly happened. The only condition is that Azure himself must possess the evidence and personally deduce the culprit, not just by looking at the clues, but by reaching a conclusion on his own. Additionally, this ability allows him to predict future crimes before they happen. However, there is a significant drawback. If Azure ever fails to deduce a case correctly, the skill will be permanently lost. This means that for the rest of his life, he will never be able to use it again. As Azure explains this ability to the founders, they are disgusted by how underhanded Eva's technique is, killing someone and taking control of their body. However, The room falls into shocked silence as everyone turns their gaze toward Kannagi, who is overflowing with mana, his rage uncontainable. With fiery determination, he vows not to forgive the apostle. Back in the present, still burning with fury, Kannagi launches a devastating attack, a flash reflection punch, enhanced by his penetration spell, aimed directly at Eva. He also uses Luminance Fist, and as he strikes Eva's face, a massive energy blast erupts, sending her flying. She tries to land, but the force is so immense that she skids backward, struggling to regain her footing. However, as the dust settles, Kannagi is shocked to hear her laughing out loud, calling him cruel. Despite being struck by multiple techniques, she still talks, mocking him by bringing up his friendship with Shikami, questioning why he attacked her so mercilessly. Kannagi, already expecting this, knows he can't defeat Eva with his current strength. Eva, still reeling from the punch's recoil, claims that it's nothing and mocks him, saying his attacks feel like he's just playing around. As the recoil fades, Eva yells that these kinds of attacks won't do anything against her. Kannagi agrees, but reveals that he was never the one meant to defeat her. All he was doing was buying enough time for the mage founder to take over his body. As the founder takes control, she claims everything, and Kannagi's body becomes engulfed in energy. Seeing this, Eva realizes that Kannagi might be the person the satellites warned about, someone who has become completely different. But instead of feeling fear, she becomes even more excited. With a wicked grin, she summons hundreds of mummies from the sky, their terrifying screams echoing. She declares that life is boring until one faces death, so they should fight with all their heart's content. Azure, watching the mummies descend, remarks that they seem like nothing more than empty shells, controlled by Eva using the bodies she has taken before. Laughing out loud, Eva boasts that all of these mummies possess the same physical strength as Shikami, and challenges them to come at her. Looking around, Hibiki notices that there are roughly 100 bodies, all on the same level as Shikami, which shocks a candidate standing nearby. Kannagi, witnessing this from his consciousness, finds it disgusting that Eva is using the bodies of those she has trampled over. The mage, who is standing beside him, notes that he has changed, and so have the founders. As the mummies shoot toward the ground, the mage, controlling Kannagi's body, declares that Eva has underestimated him. With that, she unleashes multiple electric zaps, electrocuting all the mummies midair, and shocking Eva. Mage takes it personally as Eva summons her minions, and lets them free fall in front of her, forcing Mage to strike them before they land. As the burning mummies rain down from the sky, Eva is left confused, wondering what Kannagi just did. There are people who master unparalleled accuracy through intense training, but Kannagi simply used his skill without batting an eye, and managed to hit every single target without missing. The mage instructs Kannagi to stand beside her and study her actions. Our boy finds it amazing that even though she is using a weak body, she can still cast all of her spells efficiently. Calling him closer, Mage explains that while Kannagi was only seeking power for himself, the founders, on the other hand, were eager to use their power through body. Kannagi is confused, unsure of what she is talking about. Mage continues, stating that even after everything, Kannagi, drunk on immense power, still felt closer to his goal, which was simply to become stronger. Meanwhile, all the founders are also drunk on Kannagi's unparalleled talent. However, after experiencing the tragedy of losing a friend, someone who trusted Kannagi with the future, Mage concludes that Kannagi is angry from the bottom of his heart. Pointing at the founders, who are all excited, Mage claims that they all like the current version of Kannagi. Eva, hearing this, is confused. She charges at Kannagi, yelling that the rule of the world is simple: the weak get trampled by the strong. Just as she is about to strike, an electric spark erupts in front of her, stopping her mid-charge. Eva, bewildered, looks around and notices the sky raining down with thunderstrikes. Mage reveals that many people think like Eva, but he remembers witnessing an existence powerful enough to destroy the tower, only to be toyed with and devoured by beasts from another dimension. Mage, who observed her comrades fall, now stands for those who were weak, vowing to avenge them. As she walks toward Eva, Mage, still in control of Kannagi's body, calls Eva frustrated, mocking her for lacking the strength to fight. Eva, on the other hand, can't get back on her feet as she is continuously blasted by the thunderstrikes. Mage knows that even though Kannagi trained in the mountains, laughing on the outside, deep inside he wanted revenge. She ensures that all the founders share the same belief that Kannagi will one day reach the same peak as them. Extending his hand forward, Mage assures him that if he ever needs help, they will lend it to him, and if he feels sadness, he should point to what caused it, and they will put an end to the prophecy. Without hesitation, Kannagi points at the airborne Eva, and suddenly, she is struck by lightning bolts that tear her body into pieces. Everyone is left in shock, while the instructor realizes that Kannagi resembles Midori when he was a child, a monster in the making. As Eva lies in pieces on the ground, she can't comprehend how this young boy not only destroyed all her minions, but also obliterated her body. Kannagi, walking toward her, asks if she now understands their strength, and states that he has a lot of questions to ask her. He adds that he knows many people skilled in interrogation, and wants to talk to Eva about everything that happened. However, in a deep voice, Eva reveals that she can't fight Kannagi in her current form, and admits that her boss was right about it. Suddenly, a coffin emerges from the ground, and Eva calls it her trump card. Kannagi is shocked while Eva explains that hundreds of years ago, one of the founders, known as the 10,000-man army slasher, was responsible for destroying the tower. To Kannagi's horror, Eva unveils the body of Hinoki Raishuru inside the coffin. All the founders, especially Hinoki's spirit, are stunned that she has possession of his corpse. Without a word, Mage casts a thunderbolt spell, striking down the coffin. This shocks Hinoki, but Mage states that this is now the real deal, as Eva has already taken control of Hinoki's body. In front of them, Hinoki's corpse stands, gripping his blade. Eva, thrilled by her newfound power, declares that she can now fight them on equal footing. Kannagi, taken aback by the overwhelming pressure filling the air, realizes that this aura is even stronger than what he felt while training with Ichika. But that's not all. With a snap of her fingers, Eva summons hundreds of minions from the ground, calling it the second wave. Kannagi begins to worry, but Mage reassures him that it's nothing. As Eva continues summoning her minions, a sudden explosion erupts behind her. Turning around, she sees Kannagi's friends arriving. Ichika, Suu, and the others standing ready for battle. He is not alone. Eva feels annoyed, believing Kannagi to be alone in this ordeal. As she observes him speaking, Kannagi realizes that the corpse's voice and speech pattern are identical to Hinoki's. Despite their friends joining the battle, they struggle to defeat the minions, as Eva remarks that these ones are far stronger. This time, the minions possess a physical hardening skill, and even when one of the members unleashes their full power, the attack leaves the minion unscathed. To their horror, each minion possesses a unique skill, making them formidable opponents. With their overwhelming numbers, the anti-prophecy members find it increasingly difficult to fight them head-on. Hibiki, who has been closely observing the battle, activates her sound visualization release skill, summoning a sound phoenix that obliterates a group of minions in an instant. However, despite her powerful attack, she remains wary, realizing that each minion's strength is enhanced by their individual skills. As if things weren't chaotic enough, Todoroki suddenly breaks free from his chains and slam dunks one of the younger members with crushing force. However, Hibiki reacts just in time, rescuing them from certain doom. Amidst all that, Eva is reveling in the chaos, thoroughly enjoying herself. She smugly declares that, in a battle like this, only the squad captains have a chance of survival. Hearing this, Kannagi turns to the other founders for their opinions, but they all remain silent. He then faces Mage and asks her to let him take control of the body for a moment. She is surprised by the request, but ultimately agrees. Taking control, he confidently mocks Eva, accusing her of underestimating his friends, something she should not have done. Meanwhile, Hanada finds himself surrounded by minions, but he recalls Lesson 7 from Kannagi. Channeling his fist technique, he summons a dragon, using it as both a power source and a foundation for his attacks. With explosive force, he kicks the hell out of every minion charging at him. A while ago, Founder Spirit One-Tak had observed Hinata's muscular yet flexible build, noting his tendency to rely on single-point concentrated strikes paired with his agility. Another founder, Eilerson, had argued that while it was not a bad technique, it could be far more effective with their guidance. Now, in the present, Hinata flawlessly integrates all the techniques they have taught him, moving like a coiling snake, striking from every angle and obliterating the minions with precision. At the same time, Akane stands her ground, ready to face the horde of minions rushing toward her. She remembers Kannagi's advice about the transmute technique, which converts an imperfect substance into perfection. In the past, she could only produce cheap, low-quality weapons. But now, she uses her alchemical prowess to defy limitations, crafting stone golems from the earth itself. This is something she mastered in Lesson 8, and with it she can even destroy the hardened physiques of the minions with ease. Kannagi asks Hinoki about Su'u, but Hinoki assures him that Su'u is holding his own. While he may not be as brilliant as his brother, he has his own talents. At this moment, he is skillfully wielding Hinoki's one-handed sword style combined with the Skyfall skill, cutting down a swarm of minions with a single powerful swing. He then enhances the attack by merging it with Calendula, creating a flower-shaped slash that strikes the minions in a wide area effect attack. Watching this, Ichika feels a sense of pride, impressed by how her student is seamlessly combining techniques and skills. However, in her opinion, Kannagi's feats remain unparalleled due to the complexity of his combinations. As she continues cutting down minions, lost in thought, she suddenly notices a massive fire tornado forming before her. The sight startles her, as this can only mean that the battle between Kannagi and the 12 Apostles has already begun. However, as she focuses on the fiery vortex, her shock intensifies when she realizes that Kannagi is fighting none other than the legendary founder, Hinoki. Eva charges at Kannagi, wielding Hinoki's one-handed blade style combined with the wave-cutting blade technique. However, our boy effortlessly sidesteps the attack with the precision of Goku in Ultra Instinct. Despite missing her target, Eva's strike completely obliterates the ground beneath them. Kannagi immediately counters with Mage's Thunderbolt attack, but it barely phases someone as powerful as Eva. She retaliates with her devastating dice slash skill, slicing the entire battlefield into countless cubes, even cutting down her own minions in the process. However, our boy survives, leaping onto one of the floating cubes and recalling that he has endured this very skill with his own body before. Meanwhile, as the battlefield is reduced to shifting cubes, the other members struggle just to stay upright. One member desperately clings to another, who is about to plummet into the abyss, but before they can pull them up, the dice slash severs his arm, sending her tumbling down. As she free falls, still clutching her comrade's severed arm, Kannagi notices them just in time. Without hesitation, he casts a bubble spell, lifting them all to safety. Mage Spirit, growing increasingly worried, turns to Hinoki and asks what they should do next. However, Hinoki simply leaves the decision up to her, telling her to do whatever she wants. She agrees, and just as Eva unleashes Splitting Cloud, a powerful beam blast that engulfs the entire battlefield, even Hibiki, a squad captain, is left stunned by the sheer madness of it. Meanwhile, Eva is thrilled by the capabilities of a founder's body, marveling at how perfectly suited Hinoki's body is for battle. However, despite this, Eva feels the need to use an even stronger skill, activating Hinoki's secret technique, Indomitable. She prepares to strike. But to her utter shock, Kannagi catches her sword with his bare hand. Hinoki's spirit watches unimpressed, while Mage mockingly claims that even though Eva is using Hinoki's body, he is still weak. Hearing this, Eva shouts in frustration, demanding to know how a founder's legendary body could possibly be considered weak. Desperate for a stronger skill, she frantically searches through Hinoki's memories, trying to extract something more powerful. As she forces his way deeper into Hinoki's mind, her eyes begin to tear up, as if she has just seen something truly terrifying. Eva's tears stem from the overwhelming memory of Hinoki's past, back when he was still alive during the time of the towers. Just witnessing this memory pushes Eva to the brink of madness. In the vision, Hinoki slices through an entire tower with a single swing of his blade. However, despite this awe-inspiring feat, he grows colder and more detached with each passing battle. Eva struggles to comprehend how a mere human's wisdom and skill could reach such an unfathomable level. Hinoki's memories are filled with countless acts of destruction, severing human bodies, cutting down monsters, slicing through the sea itself, and even wounding the planet. The sheer weight of these memories crushes Eva's spirit, leaving her crumbling under the pressure. She desperately wonders where she should go, how she can possibly grow stronger, but the weight of it all is unbearable. Her very soul begins to fracture, feeling as though it's about to shatter into nothingness. Hinoki's spirit, unbothered and relaxed, simply remarks that Eva's spirit should just break apart. However, another founder quickly warns that if it does, it will go berserk, slaughtering everything around it. And to their horror, that is exactly what happens. Eva's spirit shatters. It lets out a piercing scream, so powerful that it is felt even in the distant city of Takasaki. The force of the scream triggers an immediate evacuation, as residents check their phones and discover that the source of the aura is coming from Nagano Prefecture, a staggering 100 kilometers away. Yet despite the distance, the shockwaves still reach them. Panic spreads as people fear that the end of times has arrived, or that a monstrous entity has emerged.